I hate myself.
He has the ability to unmute himself.
So we did it.
Yeah,
Not if you mute all.
part of this meeting. And I can see, I can't see down, I can see a little bit of down, but I can't see Brenda, but that's okay.
There. All right, we did it. That's gonna be a war.
You don't want me to be a part of the meeting, is that what you're saying?
He said, you guys don't want me to be part of this meeting? Is that what you're saying?
They keep muting them, yeah, so I keep on muting myself, and I'm just asking the question.
Well,
Well, honestly, we're supposed to have it all muted, so,
you can't
because
vote,
we can't have the
Rick,
public
so-
coming in.
I can't,
Kenny?
I can't
No,
vote.
you guys
Why
last
not?
week said he couldn't.
I was told I could.
I don't know, I don't know any action to that. We talked about the law, not the law, with the,
So is it next year?
with the public hearing and then.
The law changes in 2 weeks.
Right, yeah. And that's,
So
we
now
talked
he
about
can-
that, if there were no restrictions.
Today, he just can't go 2 weeks from
Right.
Okay,
January
Today is
1st.
fine.
so you can vote.
Yes.
So for clarification, the reason that you can vote today, but you can't vote after January 1st, what's the stipulation in law that makes that happen?
That public act that Doreen sent to all of you guys that talks about the fact that starting January 21st, there are specific exceptions that you have to be able to qualify for. But right now, through this calendar year, it's just blanket.
With the suspension of the open meeting act.
I brought it with you if you want to.
Yeah.
I said, just in case Ian asked the question.
That's a new one.
Yes. Yeah, that was
This is the one that's
passed and
effective
signed.
October 16th.
They're still working on it. I understand the possible amendment.
Right.
Oh, yeah, they're not finished with it.
Now, we talked about that.
They
That
walked
doesn't
away
exist.
halfway through it. They shoved off and went home.
Is this gonna run out in 40 minutes?
No.
You guys ready? Morning, everyone.
Morning.
We'll call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Henning?
Here.
Commissioner Jarvis? Here. Commissioner Hess?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Snyder?
Here.
Commissioner Warren?
Here.
Commissioner Chairman Warren?
Here. We always start a meeting with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Now, you want to lead us in prayer?
Yes, sir. Our Father, we join together today to consider the business of the county. We ask you for your guidance and direction as we make the decisions for the people of the county. We ask your blessings upon the people here who are especially faced with struggles. We ask that you help them find ways to get support and help that they need. We ask your blessings upon the employees of this county and their families, including all of those who are in danger as they deal with the public. We ask that all of us, as we start into the holiday season, remember what the season is for, and that we concentrate on that and not on the frills of other things that sometimes get in the way. We ask all of this in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the board, you'll see today's agenda. And it's a big one. need a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Would like to add one thing to the agenda.
I thought you had two.
I think the other one's in there, but if it is, we're looking at appointments. Is that in there?
Yes.
Okay. But the thing that's not is the continued discussion for the county administrator controller position from last week. We need to add that. Make the decision if possible, at least to further discussion. That's a motion.
To add those two to the agenda, is that what you're doing?
One is already on, so just
To add that.
to make number 8, I guess, controller, administrator.
Yes. Okay, we have a motion and support for the agenda for today. All in favor of that, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us down to consideration of draft minutes of November 5th, 2020 personnel. Oh, we don't want to do that one. That's personnel. I guess we'll go through the minutes from the November 12th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Support.
Got a motion and support?
Yes.
Approve that? All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Department head updates. As needed, no action required. Any department heads or elected officials want to give us an update this morning? Teresa?
I don't exactly know where I'm supposed to stand, at the table or? Okay.
They sit over there by Crystal.
I would be,
There's a camera, yeah.
okay, I'd be happy to do that.
There you go.
I just wanted to give you a brief post-election update, because I'm hearing a lot in the news, and I wanted you to be aware about the post-election audits. These are normal. We've been, we county clerks have been in charge of post-election audits for a number of years. So I heard Secretary Benson say that Michigan is going to be doing the most extensive post-election audits. So I just wanted you to know, in case any of your constituents inquire or have comments, what happens is the Bureau of Election will send out a random selection of precincts that the county clerk is in charge of doing an on-site audit of everything to do with the election material. That includes reviewing all of the local clerk's files, proof of training for their inspectors, all of their test deck material. We go through extensive logic and accuracy testing prior to the election. So that's part of it, and what they've added to that on-site audit now the last several years is that we have to do an actual hand recount of a race. So the assigned race for these post-election audits will be a race of Senate. So Bureau of Election has sent that list out across the state. And so the precincts that I'm going to be in charge with auditing, and I'll be busy out 3 days next week, are going to be City of Lapeer, precincts 1 and 2, Mayfield Township, precinct 2, and North Branch Township, precinct 1. So once those are completed, then it's my obligation to report to the Bureau of Election in report form what my findings are. If there's any things that need correction, any points for training for future elections. And then once all of those, there's a 30-day window that those have to be completed in. And once those are done, then the state will be conducting what's called the risk limiting audits. And those are directed also from the state back to each county to particular precincts. This is a relatively new secondary audit. Statistical auditing, they did a pilot this year early from the presidential election, and so they're going to also be conducting those statewide. So if I have found with the calls that I've gotten after the election, many citizens think they know how all of this works, when in fact they may not have the accurate idea or direction. So if you're faced with any of those questions, I just wanted you to know what I know and how this is going to be going forward.
Does the state send anybody out, or is that all done by the local clerks?
That's a great question. There are precincts that the state will indicate that they come on site to audit. And 4 or 5 years ago, they came and did one of our township audits, and so I sat through that audit so I could see their protocol. It's a very regulated checklist on what we have to do. So to answer you, the state will choose some to do. They actually are doing a few in Wayne County. The Bureau of Election are going on site at some jurisdictions in Wayne County and in other spots in the state, but not for Lapeer County this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm comfortable with Lapeer County, but have you heard anything about them doing any forensic audits at all?
Any what?
Equipment, or have you heard of any forensic audits being done on equipment?
Forensic. I'm not familiar with that term. They are going to be, like I said, conducting the risk limiting audits, which are a statistical, kind of intense kind of audit. They do a whole formula, and they will be assigning various precincts, which are all randomly chosen, to participate in those. So we don't know who or what that's going to consist of until the other on-site audits are completed. So, but I haven't heard forensic, not that term.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Teresa. Department head, elected officials, any other department heads or elected officials like to give us a update this morning?
This is Lauren Emmons. I would like to give you a quick CMH update. I sent out a link for a CMH special meeting tonight and some materials. Mr. Warren said his came encrypted, so I resent it again this morning with a not confidential, so hopefully it beats our encryption and you get it. It'd be great if many of you could attend tonight and hear the presentation from the architect regarding the space needs of CMH.
5:30?
5:30.
Anybody else have any questions for Lauren?
Are you going, if you could, Lauren, could you, after you get the architect's recommendations, if you could email that out to us?
I did,
Well, that's what you emailed out? I've not seen that.
yes.
Okay,
So what got encrypted?
I have it, I can forward it to you.
okay.
What got encrypted, Lauren?
I think the architect recommendation and the invite to the meeting got encrypted.
Oh,
Oh.
yes, I did get that, and I just deleted it because I was quite frankly worried about it.
So I sent it again this morning, and supposedly I can type not confidential, and it won't encrypt it, so we'll see.
I thought I received it. Oh, here it is.
I thought it was back in the library.
Yeah, it's unencrypted this time.
Oh, good.
You got it, Rick?
Yeah, he just sent it out this morning on our email, so I can look it's there.
All right, that's fine. Health Department. Kathy,
Okay.
you want to come in?
Coming, I think.
I just have a question.
No, we didn't.
Or I guess Cheryl can answer. This is all COVID money? All at no cost to the county?
I believe so.
But we haven't been approved for it.
Where's the hot
Yeah,
seat?
this money's
Here
all
or there?
This would be a meeting set by December 31st.
The money's been approved, but have they actually said that you can use this
Yes.
particular money for this
For
particular?
this one you have, the CDBG, we have not got confirmation on what we can spend it on.
Everybody just talked to this real fast.
With Kathy here, we're still in departmental reports?
Yeah.
We're not into the agenda yet.
That was my question, thank you, because I couldn't hear in the
Oh,
hallway.
okay.
That's okay, you all know I can't even hear in here. Anyway, let me adjust this real quick. My phone doesn't recognize me with a face mask. Okay, well, you all know pretty much the numbers, so what I'll give you is an update on where we are with vaccination and such. And if you want additional numbers and such, I can give that to you, let me know. At the moment, we're still waiting on the final information on the vaccines as far as the details of the vaccine information sheets. However, we do know that the EUAs are moving forward pretty quickly. We are not requesting the Pfizer for many reasons. Number one, the quantity, 975 doses that have to be handled extremely carefully at extremely cold temperatures. It just doesn't make sense for us to use at the health department. So we are looking at the Moderna. Pfizer is supposed to be out still at the moment. As of Tuesday anyway, they were still expecting that it might be out as early as the 15th of December. The Moderna is expected to be out about a week later. Whether or not that fits on those dates or not is obviously still up in the air. But in the meantime, we have been working as our team at the health department, along with the hospital, to make sure that we have identified who needs to get vaccinated, in what order, and who's covering them. The CVS and Walgreens are the two pharmacies in the county, or in the state, I should say, that are doing a lot of vaccinations. They are targeting all of the long-term care facilities. And we got a spreadsheet a little over a week ago regarding that, as far as which pharmacies were covering which long-term care facilities. The tier, they're doing things in tiers, and 1A is the healthcare providers, but it's also the long-term care facilities, and as of the ACIP meeting last week, it includes the residents in the skilled facilities first. In the non-skilled facilities, those are still in tier 1, but not quite as high as the skilled facilities. So they do have a tiered approach. We have been contacting the physicians' offices in the county to ask them if they are in need of vaccination by the health department, and if so, how many staff in those offices need to be vaccinated, so that we can prepare along ahead of time. We also will be doing, I believe, Lapeer EMS, the hospital is doing MedStar, and we're also working on catching all of the others. Tier 1B includes the essential workers like firefighters, police, educators, that kind of thing. Tier 1C includes 65 years and older, other adults with underlying health conditions that are related to COVID issues. And the general public then comes in phase 2. Now, those phases will start in that order, but as most of that group gets done, then we will be able to start on the next group while we're still finishing one, so there will be some overlap. The question right now is how much vaccine we're going to get, because that number has decreased some since what they originally had said. We don't have numbers yet. They're still working on that. What we do know is that we are registered and ready to go as far as our agency. And once the vaccine is ready, the first allotment will be pushed out to our agencies without us having to request. Thereafter, the state is expecting to have new shipments every week, and we're expecting to get more doses than every Friday. So that's pretty much what I have right now, unless you have a question.
Kathy, two questions. Number one, you said the Pfizer, there's 975 doses or something?
You have to get them in 975 dose allotments, yes.
And I'm not clear on this. Is that you have to get 2 shots to do it, right? So does that mean 975 immunizes 400 and some people?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. However, remember, with the Pfizer, there's timeframes. It requires reconstitution. It has to be at minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit, Celsius, excuse me, minus 70 Celsius. When you pull it out, there's a limited time that you have to use it within, and so it's just, yeah. Where the Moderna, we can get in 100 dose allotments. We're less likely to have wastage. And we do not have the capability of storing at minus 70. Anyway, this is the first vaccine that has ever had to be stored at that cold a temperature.
So my second question is there any, what about private caregivers for the elderly, the ones that aren't in facilities? Those, where do they fall into that phase?
Any adults in the county, whether they're in a facility or not, fall into Tier 1C. Anywhere they are 65 and older or have an underlying health condition. Those are in 1C.
Okay.
And then healthy adults after that.
Okay.
That aren't in the essential worker category, the healthcare providers, et cetera.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question on that. Since I had COVID, I will be placed at a lower level on it, correct? I heard, or am I at the same level because I'm over 65?
You're gonna have to tell me what he said.
You said because he had COVID, will he be at a lower level?
Do you have does he have his test results?
You know, I'm not sure yet, and we asked that question, and they didn't want to answer it because they said that they were still working on that piece. So we do know that with most other vaccines, it is not harmful to give a vaccine to someone who has already had an illness. So that's not considered to be a very big issue.
But back to the other question, I agree with you on trying not to waste, but just clarify from my understanding what we've been hearing, the public been hearing out there in media, is that they were going to help provide the equipment to help you store that at that cold temperature. So you have mobile units, is that correct or no?
Is there any help to provide the equipment to store the Pfizer vaccine?
Well, we could, and we considered getting a freezer that would go that cold. But number one, then that's not real, it would be a very short-term use. We don't normally need cold our freezer that will keep things that cold. But the bigger piece was the handling, the number of doses, even 400 and some doses on the first round. Believe it or not, that really is a lot of doses for the way that they require the handling for it. Must be used and recharged within 10 days. If you take it, it has to travel with dry ice. You have to, if you take it out of the cooler, it's limited time that you have to use it within. You have to reconstitute it. The Moderna doesn't take as cold. It does not require reconstitution. It's right behind, on the heels of. If we were talking a month in between, we might be working more to get to do it the other way, but it just didn't seem to be cost effective and feasible to be trying to get the Pfizer. I saw two.
I'm sorry, no.
Or three.
Sorry, I just had a couple of quick questions. The Moderna vaccine, I haven't heard as much about it. I know the Pfizer one gets most of the publicity, so quick question for you. I heard the Pfizer one, the side effects can kind of hurt a little bit more than the average flu vaccination. Moderna, is that kind of the same case? Is it a bit of a heavier hit side effect wise, or is it a little less than the Pfizer?
So far, we've not heard about the side effect being as significant as with the Pfizer.
Okay.
That's what we've heard so far.
Okay. Other question I had, obviously COVID-19 already has been breaking off into separate strains. I've been asked this a couple times, I said, I don't know. With the vaccine, will it cover most of the strains? Is that how that works? Or I don't know how vaccinations, how that works with
It is not
strains.
broken into a lot of strains like the flu has, if that's what
Okay.
you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, okay.
No. And yes, this is an mRNA vaccine, and while I know I've heard floating out there that people are afraid that it's going to change their DNA, that is not true. It does not get into the nucleus of the cell, but it does cause the cells to produce the protein that produces the spike point that's necessary to trigger the immune system to produce an immune response.
Okay, and then the last question I had is just a little bit of clarification. So you said the Moderna comes in 100 dose packaging, I guess you could say.
Right.
So that means, and you said that the shipments arrive every Friday. So clarify for me, are you saying that basically every Friday we get 100 doses? Is that kind of what you're getting at? Or?
No.
Okay, perfect.
What I'm saying is, the first allotment will be just automatically shipped out to, divided up and shipped out to all of the places that are giving it. They have already have it figured out at the state, or they're figuring out at the state how much is going to each place. Every Friday more stuff will come in, but we don't know how many at the moment. We do know at a point that we will be able to request a certain number of doses. Whether or not they have it in stock to give us everything we ask for will be another story. But from past experience with this type of thing, I was the emergency planner at the agency when we had H1N1. They will distribute it such that all the agencies are getting some. They're not going to just send it all to one spot. So they do, depending on what they get in, then they distribute it accordingly. So we might ask for 500 doses, and we might get 400.
Okay.
Well, we might
Thank
get
you.
500. But, and then we plan our clinics accordingly. Yes, ma'am.
Can I get the vaccine with being allergic to eggs?
You know, that is a really good question that I should know the answer to, but I don't. I need to take a better look at that. I have not heard, and usually they specify stuff like that, but rather than give you a wrong answer, let me look that one up.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Kathy,
Yes.
help me and the community understand when we use pronouns like we all the time, because you have two hats that you have to wear. You have the health officer, and in that regard, you oversee all of Lapeer County. Then you're also a department head who oversees the health department that has a significant but not an entire role in providing health like vaccines to the community. So you mentioned, for example, our partners like the pharmacies. Well, we also have McLaren. And so, for example, I've heard that the McLaren hospital system is getting some of the Pfizer and does have the capability to distribute. I don't really know, though, how that affects Lapeer, and I know in your health officer role, you liaison very thoroughly with all of them, so you understand the hospital's piece. So if you could kind of clarify for me, number one, will the Lapeer Hospital, to the best of your knowledge, will they at some point have the capability, maybe your health department doesn't with the Pfizer, but will McLaren, Lapeer have some of that, and will their assistance at some point go beyond just distributing to the healthcare workers? Will they also be involved in community vaccination part of it? I need a little bit of clarification there, and then also when you say, we don't have the, that's a department head speaking, right? Saying we as the health department don't have it, but there are these other pieces out there in your county.
Larger corporation, and Maryland has been doing more of the talks with Denny on that than I have. To be honest, Maryland is our emergency planner, and a lot of that has happened this week as far as the nitty-gritty. There was initial talks a few weeks back. The nitty-gritty right now is trying to get down to who's doing what and how. When I talked to Denny a few weeks ago, he still did not know for sure exactly what they were getting or how many doses and how that was going to go. We do know that McLaren right now is planning to vaccinate their staff. They are also planning to, my understanding is anyway, that they're covering their urgent care and that they're also covering MedStar. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I really don't have a good answer to give you because a lot of the vaccine stuff has been really coming down fast and hard the last couple of weeks.
I would just ask
That's
for.
still talks that
Yeah, I
we
would
have
just
going on.
ask for follow-up, but we do know that, because if they do have that freezer capability and they have that ability with their nurses to, I would assume at some point they're gonna probably play an important partnership in working with the health departments and the pharmacies, and so from our community perspective, our community is kind of curious.
We work together with Danny all the time. But as far as, again, just a reminder that there's a lot to the handling of that vaccine. It's not like some of the others where we go to the refrigerator and we pull it out and use it. Twice in a day is all that some of this stuff will get pulled out when it's a Pfizer vaccine. And then it has to be used in a certain length of time. So I'm not sure. Some of it is we're looking to see how much of the Moderna and such that they're already going to come out. But we're not done talking with any, and we're not done talking with pharmacies. We know about CVS and we know about the Walgreens. I have staff back at the office right now, not only calling the doctor's offices, but I've asked them to also check with the other pharmacies in the county to see whether they independently are providing vaccines, and if so, how they plan on going about it. So we're trying to kind of determine what pieces are out there, what they're all planning to do separately, so that we are aware and we can better then make sure that everyone who needs to be covered gets covered. Does that answer your question?
Follow that up.
So yeah, no,
Follow that up.
it's still all it's all still being talked in words.
Do we know for sure whether CVS and Walgreens will be using Pfizer?
I know that CVS is providing vaccination for some of our long-term cares, and I know that Walgreens is providing it for others. I don't have the spreadsheet with me, but I do have it back at the office. So we know which pharmacy is covering which of the long-term care facilities. And then,
Another related question, we've had some email back and forth about the state app to track COVID. Yeah, I appreciate your
Sure.
comment. Anything,
Well,
and I noticed you moved it up in your Monday and Thursday email.
Because of your question, I did move it up, but I know that the state had a media blitz on it, both radio and TV, and I had it in the update letter from the week that it came out and such. In answer to the privacy question, if you go to the website and pull out that app and read how it works, in order to participate in this app, you have to download it to your phone. It does not just automatically call random phones throughout the county or country. You have to download it yourself in order to receive messages and in order to send messages. So there's no HIPAA violations there because you are purposely downloading that app to your phone if you want to get that. However, the advantage is, if you do have that, and you were at an event or a location where you may have been exposed to nice pieces, that you might get that warning so that you're aware and can maybe keep from exposing somebody else. Did you have another question, Gary?
I wanted to thank you for that
Yep, no
information
problem.
and just highlight it
Yeah.
more for people
No
who might
problem.
want to take advantage of it.
You just have to go to the website and read what it tells you about it, and it will explain it better for you.
Are there any other questions for Kathy?
I have one more question on the same thing for the app. You said if I'm at the app, and of course I'm in, and I walk into a group here, let's say, somebody there has COVID, they would let me know. But they would only let me know if that other person has the app also, or how would they know if that person and I are in the same room?
What do you think?
The app lets you know if you signed on. Does it let you know if there are people in the same room who are also on that app?
It does not give them names.
Does it give
It's not-
names?
There is a, like an ID or a number assigned to that person so that it doesn't show up as a name, but it will let, but you still have to have the app in order to be able to receive the message.
So the
The
bottom
person
line,
had, let's say the person was tested positive or what have you, and they relayed to us who their contacts were, and those were put into the system. If that person has an app, then they will get notification that they may have been exposed, but they will not know who they were exposed to.
the bottom line is that anybody who's on the app is a willing participant by their own free will to be on that app. Nobody's being forced to be on that app.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah, so, the good news is about this is we're actually only getting the microchip free vaccines in this country. So, you know,
Let's hope.
Why should create another problem?
Well, they're now-
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay,
Thanks, Kathy.
do you want me to just stay put, or?
You might as well. Department heads, elected official updates, or any other elected officials, department heads like to give us an update this morning? Hearing seeing no one, will close elected official department head updates. Brings us down to the first public time. Would anybody like to address this board during the first public time?
Yes, sir.
Well, come up here, introduce yourself.
Oh, by the way,
What happened to your mask? Did you break it?
No, I left it in my pocket. Is that okay? Sure.
That'll do you a lot of good there, but that's.
Yeah, you're right. Don't give me a lot of good air either. I'd just like to respond to the health department's findings with this statement from the Epoch Times. Study finds an asymptomatic spread, not a significant source of the CCP virus pandemic. Here's an extra copy I'll leave here for anybody's statement. We also have Americans suffering from a delusional psychosis about this CCP virus. They've been hit hard over the news media for the last 6 to 8 months, and it seems like everything COVID is first story up. And there's one called The Invention of an Epidemic. You might want to read that. I don't have that much time. We've only got 3 minutes, so I'll try to be brief. I have to be.
I'm keeping track.
Pardon me?
I'm keeping track for you.
Okay. This one, DARPA has funded tech promises. Tech promises to diagnose COVID-19 through implantable microchip. Government awards contracts to 7 organizations with ties to Gates Foundation and DARPA. These are a number of different sites. It's not just all one site, so we can't say it's one propaganda thing against the virus, against the belief. There are few nonviolent resistance. We are many, they are few. Nonviolent resistance to the COVID-19 coup. What is no one saying about these lockdowns? Which I have to commend wood chips and the tilted axis for saying no. Not here, not now. We do have some constitutional rights left, although the Department of Health and Human Services has taken a handoff from the governor to try to curtail those constitutional rights we used to enjoy, like going out to dinner and having a drink once in a while. Oh, geez. COVID-19 paves the way for the new frontier in surveillance. Yeah, those apps. Gotta have an app. Everybody's gotta have an app. You can't be safe without an app. Can't be healthy without an app. The app's gotta follow you everywhere you go, so you can be aware if somebody might be next to you with COVID-19. Hey, I'm just saying.
Now, I'll stop my barrage of things here and just say one other comment. I used to work for Yellow Freight in Detroit before I got retired. A buddy of mine still working there used to work at the Kalamazoo facility for Yellow Freight, which we did a lot of work for Upjohn Pharmaceutical, which was bought by Pfizer. He says that place was a shell of a facility compared to what it was when I was working. I worked in Battle Creek for the, as I say, Central Piping Company. And I'll be brief. He's saying, you don't know where that's coming from with Pfizer. Could be China, could be Europe, because they downsized it to the max, and a lot of it went overseas. So I would be very wary of anything coming from Pfizer, because we don't know where it's coming from. And when I talk shipping, if our trucks aren't loading and UPS ain't loading, then you gotta ask the question, is it being flown in from somewhere? Who's to say? Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I kept it under 3 minutes.
I don't think so, but I just let you keep talking.
Thank you.
Here we go. Public time. Sir.
Now leave those.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Alt with the City of Lapeer DDA. I'm here, Ian invited me and Cheryl invited me to come this morning to recommend to come, but I also wanted to give you guys a couple of updates for two main reasons. First, the Lapeer DDA started having a conversation a few months ago about wanting to be consistent in village capture. What villages we capture, what villages we don't capture. So over a couple months, we did some exploring, talked to some other downtowns across the state of Michigan, and also just had some good conversations about our priorities for the DDA, for the downtown area, and the role it plays in the overall community. So all of that being said, we did make the decision that moving forward, the Lapeer Main Street DDA is going to capture all future county villages. We will opt to capture those villages. And there's a few reasons for that. One, we believe that our downtowns are the driving forces of our communities. They are one of the hearts of our communities. Having a strong downtown and having the resources to develop our downtowns, making them vibrant, strong communities, benefits not only the residents in the immediate area, but they benefit the city, municipalities, and the county as a whole. They are the main attraction for employees. They're the main attraction to get people to move to communities. They enhance the overall quality of life of everybody in the county and the area. So that's the main reason we did it. Also, in talking to other downtowns across the state, not downtowns in Lapeer County, but downtowns across the state, we found that Lapeer County is one of the more unique ones in that most counties don't actually ask their downtowns to opt out or into village captures. Most counties, it's just assumed that the downtowns, the DDAs, will capture villages that are put forward, county-based villages. This is done because it's a way for the county to support those downtowns, to give them a little bit of extra funds that they can use to develop and grow their communities. It also doesn't put the DDA in the position of being the bad guy, having to say, we're going to opt out or we're not going to opt out of this particular village. And again, it's also a decision that keeps it consistent. So we wanted to let you guys know that. And the other reason is, of course, the main reason I talked to them yesterday was to talk about the farmers market pavilion. And it is still the desire of the DDA to discuss the farmers market pavilion with the county commissioners. So I know we wanted to get that information to you first with their recommendation. So that's why I'm here today, is to request further conversations and to make you guys aware that future county villages will or opting to capture. Any questions on that?
So this is public time, we can't respond. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
David.
Anybody else like to address the board during the first public time?
Yes, first off, thank Ms. Haskins for coming in here. And thank you guys for the last meeting. That information we got, a lot of the stuff The more information we can get out to people, the more a lot of this unsettled stuff makes it easier to understand. I very much appreciate the update as far as what the vaccines are. I'm hoping that maybe as part of this, that maybe you guys can find out, and we can work together somehow. But there's a lot of confusion, and maybe there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here with these vaccines coming out. Maybe, I mean, there's a long way to go. We've had a lot of bad stuff going on. And everybody, this has just been a horrible year. Hopefully we're going to move on to 21, which is going to be a better year. My question, and it seems like everybody I talk to, the biggest confusion, I've asked Representative Howell and Senator Daley, and it seems that our Senate can't get or our legislature can't get a good information. Is there and I'm hoping that there's a place, maybe we can talk afterwards, but I'm hoping that there's a place where we get some information when the stats are released, and all of a sudden you see, upon review, we've added such and such. Now, this is very confusing because without explanation, these are just kind of numbers that are being pulled out of hat, and I'm sure they're not. But if there was a way that we could understand, the average Joe could understand this, I'm sure that there would be a lot less confusion in it. And I know you guys are looking to try to help folks be able to understand this whole thing that we're going on. So I just appreciate everything that's going on with this. These meetings are very informative. I would urge, as I have before, that we find a way to get this out so that it's regularly out there for people, that people can get to tune in and see what's going on so they know exactly what's going on. These are very interesting and important meetings. So again, with that, I would hope that there's a way that we can maybe find out that information, that more calls have to be made or whatever, but just something so people could know how these statistics are done. It's just easy. It's much easier to understand when you read different parts of this. When you have all this in upon review, what is in? Who's reviewing it? I mean, where are they? It just seems like a very simple question, and believe me, I'm a very simple guy. So, whatever could be done, I appreciate it. But again, I understand the difficulty that our health department truly is facing right now. The horrible situation. It's just, and Lapeer County is so much better than other areas. I thank my lucky stars every day that I'm in Lapeer County. So, again, that's it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this board during the first public time? Who do I got left?
Jim, yay.
Jim.
Want to get my right side.
There you go.
Anyways, I'm a resident here in Lapeer, for Lapeer now. I got a question, and it's not a terrible question, but I think it should be addressed. And there's been rumors that the stimulus package is going to be offered to people who get the vaccine, and they might not offer it to people who don't get the vaccine. Now, I know that's a crazy thing to think of, but if you could comment on the efficacy, if it's ethical to do that. And it's probably just a crazy rumor, and at the end of the meeting type thing. Okay.
Anybody else like to address this board during the first public time? Hearing and seeing no one, I'll close the first public time. Bring us down to, I guess, the health department. There's a lot of things here that are
Mr. Chairman, to answer Ian's question, those are all COVID money, and it's all budgeted, and we have to spend it by the end of the year.
It also, I looked, every one of those have no additional cost to the county general fund. So, Mr. Chairman, I will move motions A through I on number 3.
I only have one question. Where's the money right now? I mean, is the money here in the county to be spent? Or is the money someplace in limbo?
Do you know? Jackie?
I'm back.
Is the
I
money,
believe so.
is the money here in the county now?
No.
We have to submit the bills to.
That's right, thank you. But I mean, it is there.
It'll be there as soon as we
Okay, I'm
submit
just
the
trying to
bills.
get an answer out of finance.
Sure.
Because what we're doing right here is what we're approving, all of these things.
You know, I said no right away,
but Emma is a better person because she has multiple ones, that some of them, they gave her money and they're taking it back because they ended their period as of September 30th. And then she's got another one, this one is December 30th, and I'm not really sure if it's here in the county or not.
That's fine, Jack, I just don't want the county to end up all of a sudden paying for all this and, and not being reimbursed, which we've seen happen by the state many, many times. So you just have to be careful with this. I don't mind all this stuff, I think it's great.
This is federal COVID funds, right?
Yes.
And haven't we already approved those additional funds?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just a listing of what we're
This is what we're buying.
receiving. I do have a question. The big addition, of course, is the extra money for drinking water and on-site wastewater.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit? Because we're talking, it looks like 150,000 extra.
Right. Over the last year or so, they have recognized that public health has been underfunded. And that's been brought up many times, but it actually got acted on this year. We actually got some of that last year, which is what we used to purchase a couple of vehicles to upgrade the fleet so that the environmental health is using. Yeah, that was an extra that the state sent out to all the different counties, and that's where they paid for it. We have been underfunded in the water area for a long time. Sterling has run his tail off trying to keep up with that, and with these extra funds, we are able to have another sanitarian work part-time trying to help him catch up on all that stuff. So,
is this bottled water?
I'm sorry?
You said drinking water. Is this bottled water?
No. No. This has to do with community water supply.
Right.
Right. It's not bottled water. It's the overall oversight of the water and systems and such.
It's not the public water, it's the stuff like where you've got a store out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And I understand that, but you know, with Michigan Works, we went through this whole process. Or actually through Michigan Works, we actually, through the federal government, came up with $15 million, $7.5 million packages to distribute drinking water. So I was just curious how much of this is left over from that. That was supposed to be done in Flint.
No.
And there's a bunch of it still roaming around out here in this county where people are selling it for a buck a case. So I'm just kind of curious where our money's going.
This is testing that the
This
state,
is
federal government wasted on us 2 years ago.
Right.
Okay, let's make sure we
Testing
keep
oversight,
everything in
not
line
bottled
here.
water.
I want to get back to Gary's question. So we're going to purchase the truck before we receive money, is that what we're saying? Or are we going to be getting some down payment to purchase trucks before we start purchasing trucks? Like Gary said, we would be obligated to pay for that if they were illegal. I've never seen that happen before.
I'm trying to get it.
I couldn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
We're having trouble hearing you, Rick.
Okay, I'm going to try to talk louder. Can you hear me, Kathy? Can everybody else hear me?
Yeah, now.
Better, yeah.
Okay, my question was to follow up on Gary. Gary asked, we're gonna approve all this stuff, but we don't have the money in the county. So what we're saying is we're gonna approve the whole purchase of the truck, and if they redig now, if the truck is in the county, then we have to take care of it. Is that correct? Or are they gonna send us a deposit county so we can get things moved? It's just, I just put it out there.
Right. I guess the best explanation I can give you is that we don't have all of these other monies in our county either. We fill out a financial status report every quarter, and Emma fills that out, sends it in, and the state reimburses us quarterly. And that's how all of the other budgets work as well. So unless Emma has something further, I'm sorry?
We go through this discussion at budget time all the time. It's the reason why we have the healthy fund balance that we have. It's not because that's extra money. That's money that carries us through because so much of what we do is an arm of the state. And the way the state of Michigan operates is you start it, you front it, and then submit the bills, and then we'll reimburse you. So that's why we have to always have a healthy fund balance to cover us starting it. And like Kathy said, there's nothing unusual about, this is unfortunately the way we normally have to do business.
Right. We are at the end of the quarter, and this particular fund is, expires December 30th. And so the FSR for this will be going in January, and so Emma will be submitting for this.
The difference right now, Lenny, is the state has no money. You know that, I know that. You know that our revenue sharing next year will not be here.
Again, this is federal money.
I haven't seen the federal government dealing out any checks to the state or Skidley. Regardless, I don't see the presses running, that's all. They are. Sure? Okay, you guys think that that money's just gonna appear here, and we're gonna have the money to pay for all this?
For this year?
I didn't say anything about this year. I said the money coming, this has nothing to do with this year, Dial.
No, I'm talking this year being 2021, which we're already in for the health department. We're almost done with the first quarter.
We're just ending the first quarter, we're in the last month of their first quarter.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries. Brings us down to the next.
That all?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
I didn't know where I through whatever went. Thank you.
Equalization, request to approve the designated accessor contact. Mr. Hill?
We're all smiling?
Yeah, well, I started checking into this, and there was a lot of changes and a lot of addendums and all sorts of things added to this deal.
Okay, well, in a nutshell, Public Act 660 became law in December of 18. So this hasn't been sprung on anyone, which I've been accused of springing it on at the last minute. This is very painstakingly put together. And absolutely, there's been many changes because the state put out a template to use for this interlocal agreement in August, and they changed it. And honestly, the one you have before you, I have plagiarized. I took it from 3 or 4 different counties. Ottawa is one that probably has passed according to this, or will pass according to the state tax. So I took their stuff and I changed our name to it and tweaked a couple little places that the local units have requested. And one of them that is, actually is in the proposal. It brings it down, it's very minimal. It says a lot of things, but it's all law. So I'm not asking you to approve this today, I'm just asking you to read this, accept it, and give somebody, if Chairman Roy, the option, or you at your December 15th, 16th meeting, whatever it is, if the local units, if I get the majority of the local units to sign on. I've met with them at least 3 times, and virtually a couple of the times, I may or may not have I feel good one day and I feel bad the next day. I may not have a majority. I need 11 local units, and I'm sure they're going to talk to their commissioner about this. This is law. I don't like it, but it's law. So
I don't have a problem, signing this but we're getting the same problem out of the same jurisdictions that we got last time when it came to Lapeer County EMS, and it's the same players coming back, creating a problem, saying this isn't legal legislation. So that's what they're coming back with. And all of a sudden they're saying, well, I'm not so sure that I'm going to participate in this, and I'm not so sure that I'm going to front the money to pay for this or anything else. And if you want me to name the players, I can name them right now.
Oh, I've talked to them many. And the last discussion I had, which was last week, I talked to Mr. Bob Brazier. He's the one that the majority of the local units have said they picked him. We put this out for bid twice.
Right.
And this is what we got 2 people, this is what we have, and this is the wishes of the majority that I talked to him, and he has agreed to change his agreement slightly. That says he will bill independently, and it's $125 per, and that was a typo. That did not get included in your first package, but it is, I know, it's administration. And so those that don't sign, they don't pay. So if they ever need a designated assessor, he's bound by contract for those who sign to do it for $10 a parcel, which is very reasonable. But if they don't sign and they're not under agreement, he can charge, he's still the designated assessor for the county, he can charge them $25 a parcel. Don't know if he would, this is only my observation, that he's under no obligation to live by this agreement. So, this agreement puts in place that he will act as a designated assessor for the local units in Lapeer County, not a employee or anything to do with the county. The county is just tasked with naming one. This is from the state tax commission. Local units feel it's a county position, so they should pay for it. Some counties do, but that is not the obligation of this board. We are just tasked with naming one with the majority of the local units agree. So however it comes out, retained fees, no retained fees, some counties are paying none, other counties are paying $10,000. St. Clair, I know for a fact, is paying $5,000. Will their county pick up the tab? Those that don't pay it, for that I don't know.
Yeah?
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions, because I really, I don't quite understand some of this. So this gentleman is willing to bill the municipalities directly and accept whatever payment he gets from the municipalities, and then adjust, if he does get called in, to adjust his wage or hourly rate if he does get called into a municipality that doesn't pay. That's correct, right? He's
under no obligation, if you do not sign, he's under no obligation to represent them, but he is the designated assessor for Lapeer County.
Really? Okay, so he's under, if Elba does not sign, he's under no obligation to represent Elba if there's an issue.
Well, they did not agree, they did not sign into this agreement, so if they are ever in the situation that a designated assessor would have to be named, and the state does this, they said, okay, you didn't pass your audit and you didn't do a corrective action plan correct enough to our liking, so we're going to put, you had the choice to hire another assessor, and like this is a long process, and you didn't do that, or you didn't do a satisfactory job of doing that, here's your designated assessor, and that is this person. Now,
So,
he can charge, I feel he can charge whatever.
So if Elba, let's say, because my understanding is, at least from what I've heard so far, they're one that's opting out of this. And, so if that happened, and he said, I don't have to represent you because you didn't opt into this agreement, then does the state at that point, are they I don't know what you would call it, do they step in and say, okay, we're taking that responsibility?
No, this is what the designated assessor has done. The state used to do that. The state used to step in and take over for a unit that did not meet qualifications or whatever reason. They found it, for whatever reason, they don't have the staff to do it anymore. I have no idea. So now every county or every district installed has to name a designated assessor, and it has to be approved by the majority of the local units. So the majority of the local units approve Mr. Butcher. And now, if said township gets into a situation where they need a designated assessor, the state says it's Mr. Bob Reserve. And they said, well, we didn't agree to his funds or his charges or whatever. So now I would guess, and I have no idea to tell you the truth, I would guess they have to negotiate charges on it. And it could be more, it could be the same, I don't know. And if they didn't want to pay $125 that I'm charging originally, then I would make up for that some way. It's all in nature.
That seems kind of.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So let me go another route. Just so if we don't decide to do this, to name this gentleman, and I think it's a very fair thing that he's agreed to. I think incredibly. But if we chose not to agree to that, or the majority of the municipalities chose not to sign on to that, The other option is that the state, we assign the state, right?
Well, it's really not an option in our, let's see, October 2nd meeting. Dave Buick informed the equalization directors of Michigan that if it's left up to the state will charge. Simple as that. Didn't say what, didn't say how much, had no idea. They said the state will charge. There will be a charge.
Charge who?
Municipalities.
Municipalities, but they don't want to deal with 1,100 county or 1,100 local news now. They want to deal with 83 counties, so I'm guessing they're going to charge you. That's only my guess. I mean, they don't want to do their job, I'm sorry.
Would think that we have the authority to charge us, but.
Well, you are a district. The districts were named for county, each county is a district now. You can have multiple districts and create a bigger district. And right now, this Mr. Brochure is in line to do Sand Lake County as well. And I believe he has put his name out there for a couple others, I'm not sure. But I know Sand Lake County, because I talked to her. And I believe that was the driving reason why the local units wanted to use him.
I know Oregon Township didn't choose to approve it, but it wasn't that they wouldn't ever, it was just they needed more information. They thought there were a lot of unanswered questions. Can a unit approve it later, into 2021, or is there a deadline and after that they can't approve it anymore?
Well, the designated assessor is assigned for a term of 5 years. This is all through that law. And what's named there for 5 years for that district. And the only way the designated assessor can opt out is if it comes in incapacitated, drops the certification, or found to be not qualified to do the job. So once he signs up, he's there for 5 years. Can the local units come in at a later date? Honestly, I don't know. I do not anticipate any local unit in Lapeer County having a designated assessor named for malfeasance or for lack of doing the job. I don't feel we have that problem, but something that we have to do because of the law.
Let me ask you, just because of what's happened in the past in this whole scenario. I guess, would you, this is a theory, right? But the state, we know, has expressed some interest in the past in going to the counties doing all of the assessment. So by this action of making the counties designate this person, would it be, I guess, fair to say that it's one step, or I guess the state's intention or underlying intention to make it one step closer to the counties taking over all of the local assessing? And by the local municipalities not agreeing to do that, it would seem to me that would, if there's some that do and some that don't, it would seem to me that would play right into the state's hand of, look, we've got municipalities that are refusing to have a designated assessor, and we need to bring this into one. Is that too much man on the grassy knoll, or?
Okay, the official word, I believe it's out on the state's website, is this is not county assessment. Okay. Now, if I'm the state legislature, would I like to deal with 1,184 different local units, or would I like to deal with 83 counties? I won't be my personal opinion on that. No matter what.
That's really what I want.
It's further down the road. Could I see it happening? Nothing surprises me. I don't see it happening immediately, not for the next 5 years at least. I think a lot of this was brought on in the MTA had the Eastern Township Association. This was a compromise, and with the NML, I believe as well, compromise of the original draft or of law or proposed law to kind of take over the world, take over the state. And so this is a compromise that they come up with. So now, every individual district, they don't call them counties, but they call them districts now, because multiple counties can go together and get the same one. So it's a district, and they'd rather deal with that. This used to be the state tax commission's job. They found somebody not compliant and unresponsive of corrective action plans. The state tax commission come in and took over the role, and they named the person whoever they could hire or their own staff. Well, their staff is nothing anymore, so then they hired firms to do it. Then they run into some problems like coming down in the downriver areas, charging astronomical amounts. They had to do a lot of work. So they said, geez, you must do this. Well, this is the compromise that the MML, the MTA, and the NCL, or the MML, MT, then they come together, and this became law 2 years ago. So this is the compromise. I preached, I yelled, I screamed, I did everything I could. This is a bad idea, guys. You're going to the radio with that one.
So maybe that's what they want.
Maybe, but legislatures aren't long enough anymore. I mean, you know, it's term limited, so they're not there long enough. And maybe some counties wanted it. I don't know. All I know, it is law. We either have to name one by the end of the year, so that this is no guarantee that it will be accepted by the state tax commission, because I've seen the response proposals. I've seen very detailed one, what the person is going to do for every single thing. I've seen very generic ones like this. Jesus, $10 a parcel, and it's X amount of dollars an hour if needed. So everything in between. All I know that the agreement I have drafted, and I did this, I cheated, but I took it from all the ones that are, no one's been approved yet, but this one was very much recommended that it would be approved by the state tax commission. So, you know, there's a few tweaks, I'm not sure.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a motion?
No, we don't. You're gonna move what?
The draft motion about the interlocal agreement, which includes the specific proposal by.
Do you have copies of the addendum? Because if you don't, I don't want to sign it.
Well, the only addendum that I was missing was is the values, and that's in your equalization report. It says every report I give to the state, and I have one that it just stops the page. But the other one is his proposal, and this local agreement. That's the only addendum that there, and I'd be happy to.
I don't have a problem, Rick. My problem I have is how many of these municipalities can just walk away from this.
Well, I don't think, legally we can't walk away. Could they walk away from paying this person?
They tried to walk away from Lapeer County EMS.
I'm not sure how that was. This is a private entity, a person, saying, I will act as your designated assessor, but I want $125 a year per every unit, and I will bill you independently. So if you don't pay him, that's between you and him to
work that out.
Well, the agreement is between you and him, and the agreements of the county has no responsibility at all.
I do have a question on for Dial. I don't see a draft motion.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
Number four. And I wanted to make that motion, though, to include the addendums, which would include the specific person who will do this and what his terms are.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
And then what I understand you saying, Greg, is then you still want to be able to get the sign off from the local units of government.
Oh, I would think that's
And Gary's original point that he made in an email, if you don't get the majority of them to sign off, it goes to the state.
Yes,
and,
At least we've done our part.
Well,
That's what I keep trying to tell the municipalities. Look, if you don't want to sign it, just like I sent the thing back to the gal from Oregon. If you don't want to sign it, that's fine. If you'd rather have the state come in and take care of this for you, be my guest.
Right. And so I think Dial's draft motion right now still isn't going to change that process. They still at their end, the majority of them have to sign on.
Yep.
or else it gets defaulted, it gets punted to the state.
It's moot.
And if it costs them a lot more money, we try it.
Would you accept putting our caveat on the end of that motion at no additional cost to the county general fund? At no cost to the county general fund?
Of course.
Okay.
So including the addendums and no cost to the county general fund.
I'd say no cost to the county.
No cost to the county, period.
Okay. That's fine.
So we have a motion and support. Yes,
We have a motion.
Do we have a motion number?
Is there a second?
There's a second.
There isn't a second yet, is there?
I did it, yeah.
Okay. They're near areas, one of those particular areas that, we have so many problems with, so we'll see. All right.
It's up to them.
And can I just say one more thing, like, individual units do not participate and do not get a majority, it affects the rest of them, and it affects everyone, so we don't get 11, and
Sure.
I put it out there many times,
So what exactly happens if you don't get a majority?
nothing. Leave it to the state, we actually have no action, we have nothing to send to the state.
And all of a sudden, the
You
state
could
just
send
takes
ours.
over.
I would assume you send what we passed.
No,
No?
No?
because we don't have any, the only thing we're doing is.
Well, you should at least send them notice that we passed it and that the requisite number of.
We didn't
local-
pass anything until the municipal,
Right,
the
yeah,
other
the
ones, until they
municipalities
signed
actually
it
come
and sent
first.
it back to us, we didn't pass anything.
This meeting is
So
kind
we-
of getting the cart before the horse, but I don't have
Okay.
time.
So we're just approving the language
Yes.
dependent
I
upon.
remember from last year, they.
Depending on all the municipalities signing it.
All right.
I remember from last year.
I just
we were supposed
don't like to be sitting there with just my name on something.
You really wanted a survey. Right? You guys hear me okay?
No.
No,
No.
What, okay, now yell louder, can you hear me better?
not much.
Not much, okay, we need to work on that for the next one, but anyway, the question was that, I remember last year when we talked about this, that we were supposed to just approve this, so the township could pick who they wanted as assessor, but we have to prove that we want to handle it. If we didn't approve that by the township, then it was gonna go to the state, and that's the way they told it, and that's the way we're still sitting here right now, no matter what we do, if the townships don't agree, it's going to the state.
That's exactly right. Okay.
Are there any other counties that are submitting one that you know of?
That is a subject that nobody wants to talk about, but I do believe there's other counties that have much difficulty trying to find one. And we believe it's Ingham, Bill Fowler, he's the director over there, former state tax commission employee. His title there was quite high up on the list, and he feels this is not legal, but again, it's law. So I'm not a lawyer, I can't say that this law is passed by legislature. So we must do this, we shall.
Just make sure when you write this, everything up and it's written in there, that you actually state as soon as the municipalities get this document back to us and it's signed, then I will sign the document.
Well, I think the language is clear, just my interpretation is faulty.
I don't know anything about
Kirk has a
language.
question.
Instead of the words to adopt the interlocal agreement, what would you think of authorizing it to be sent out to the locals for consideration? Similar to what you do with the police contract.
I don't think it really matters, to be honest with you, because if you don't get 11, whether you sign it first or you sign it last, it's null and void, right?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
if
I
you get
get
11, then
Well,
we're going to sign it anyway.
if he gets 11 of them and they send it back signed, it makes it a little bit easier to sign, that's all.
And if he gets 8,
Then we don't
It's
sign
irrelevant.
it. The state takes it.
Do you want to put in there the chairman signer or the controller in case?
No, the chairman signs these.
Okay, I just wonder if it come back late.
No,
Wouldn't
no,
that
I'm
make you
not
come
gonna
back
worry
in?
about it coming back late.
And that's, regarding your offer, I think that's the key difference between this and the police contract. The police contract is on an individual basis.
Right.
Between us and the township, us and the township, us and the township. This is us following state law that the state created, public act that says the county shall, and by us adopting the motion today, we're meeting our shall part of it. And then like was said, if the majority of them don't agree to it, it takes two parties to agree to a contract.
That's
The
right.
majority of them don't agree to it, it's a moot point whether or not we signed it first, because it just doesn't take effect. But at least it shows that we met our shall.
Back in August 28th, from the State Tax Commission, it says, the county responsibilities are no other than to name the designated assessor. And you can't name one until the majority of the local units agree to it.
And what is the date, what is the deadline on that? There was a date they gave us.
Next week.
December 31st has to be into the State Tax Commission.
That's right.
And I have not set on my hands on this, nothing came, the first thing came about was like in August, late August, and it wasn't very clear then.
We're not blaming you for it.
Well, a lot of people did.
We understand where it came from, how it happened. And we have to deal with it, that's all. Said that, sure. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Hill?
Just have to take a vote.
Yeah, as soon as there's questions. Anybody else got another question? Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carried.
And I will be the meeting if that's okay.
Fine, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for your work on this.
Thanks for coming over today.
All right, bye now.
Oh, this stuff turned into a real pain. Community Corrections, request to approve annual renewal community corrections grant.
I'll move approval of it. Dave was here and explained it to us. This is just our now filing, getting the contract approved. Regional, area regional community correction advisory board already recommended approval of it. This is just to get our money from this year.
Second part.
Doesn't matter. Just as long as the money comes through. Is the money coming through this time?
Yeah.
That comes through every year on this one.
No, well, it didn't come through last year, that's how he got in trouble.
Community corrections did.
His revenue didn't come.
His
Oh, yeah,
revenue-
right, no, that's
His
it.
revenue.
No, that was in the grant. That was a
Right.
separate issue.
Right, but that was part of the issue. Where he got himself in a jam because of it. Not intentionally, but that's just the way it worked out. Okay, so we got a motion and support community corrections. Request to approve the annual renewal. Got a motion and support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries. Prosecuting attorney-elect, request to discuss approved reorganization restructuring plan beginning in January. Referred from the December 3rd Personnel Committee.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just, this was on the Personnel Committee's agenda. We really felt that this was something that needed to come in front of the full board, so we moved it to the full board with taking no action. So, and actually what happened, to be honest with you, also was that because we went lengthy that day, Mr. Miller had been here for several hours and then was called away when it was time for us to talk about it, and so we just moved it here with no action, no recommendation. So,
John?
Good morning.
Seem to have a couple requests in here.
A few.
Yeah.
Whenever I have a copy for you, I think if anyone else needs one, I have extras here.
That's the same
Is it
one.
the same one?
Yes, same one that many of you have already received.
It's in our packet too.
Yes. So I think the most exciting thing I can tell you about the reorganization plan, it has nothing to do with COVID. That really is. But anyways, thank you for giving me the time to present this this morning. I think it's, you all know my experience in the prosecutor's office. You all know that the scenario that we're in right now, we're facing some unprecedented times in the office. We're facing times where caseload is down, but jury trials are really backed up. We haven't had a jury trial since probably February of last year, or this year rather, February of 2020. As it stands right now, we're looking ahead and probably not going to have one until April or May of 2021. So I'm coming in, looking at a backlog of cases, looking to try to get a plan together to move those cases through.
I think we're in a really good position to do that with Judge-elect Hodges here. We'll have 2 circuit court dockets rolling again, where we have criminal dockets on 2 different circuit courts rather than just 1. So I think that's going to help us tremendously to get those backlog of jury trials caught up to date and get multiple dockets going, because everything right now is happening by Zoom, and it's created a tremendous backlog for just ordinary motions and things that are going on in front of Judge Holoka right now. They're being scheduled for every 15 minutes. If you've ever sat through a criminal docket day in the old days when we did it live, it went pretty quick. I mean, we handled probably anywhere from 30 to 50 cases inside of 4 hours roughly. So you can't do that anymore when there's 1 case scheduled for every 15 minutes and there's connection issues and those sorts of things. So that's kind of the overview of what the situation as I see it with the prosecutor's offices right now. I also think that there's an opportunity right now for us to start in January with a few plans that I have to change some things. Streamlining the office. I don't think that's been done for a very long time. The first of which that I'm proposing is the classification of legal secretaries, and I use that term generically because right now there are 5 different job descriptions for legal secretary. Clerk typist, legal secretary, senior legal secretary, domestic relations secretary, and administrative legal secretary. What I'm proposing is streamlining that down to 2 job descriptions. It wouldn't affect anybody's pay grade. The only pay grade I'm proposing and affecting is the domestic relations secretary, and changing that position from a secretary position to what is probably more appropriate referred to as a coordinator position. I'm proposing making that from a 5 to a 7 pay grade. And the reason for that is because that individual in that job probably handles some of the most classified and confidential information within our office. That person is dealing with paternity test results. That person is preparing domestic relation orders for support services for families that are involved with state aid. That person is also has the task of locating people across the country that don't particularly want to be found and don't want to be supporting their family. So there's a lot of different facets that go with that. But what I'm proposing is having 2 job descriptions that cover all of the legal secretary positions, the traditional positions that are drafting, printing motions and preparing proofs of services and notice of hearings and coordinating with the courts and doing the traditional type of secretary work that we do there. Proposing making that a legal secretary 1, a legal secretary 2. Now, stepping ahead one more step, I'm proposing eliminating the office manager, director of victims services position. That position has been vacant for approximately 2 years, maybe 3. It's been vacant. I think we can do without it. I think that I possess the knowledge and skills to step into that role. I mean, that's kind of what the job of being a prosecuting attorney is, to deal with the personnel issues, to deal with the budget issues, and deal with reimbursements, vouchers, communicating with you folks about what's happening in the office. So I'd like to utilize that efficiency. Now, those two propositions are connected because if you read the job description for any one of the legal secretaries, the first line is it reports to the office manager. So by necessity, if we eliminate the office manager position, director of victim services, we have to rewrite those job descriptions. If we're rewriting job descriptions, let's take advantage of that opportunity to streamline those job descriptions and update those, because it probably hasn't been done in over 20 years as far as I can tell. Continuing on, there's a few other things that I'm proposing that I think it's quite timely to address. The biggest of which I think is the most important part of the office is the assistant prosecutor's position. Now, what I've discovered through meetings with Cheryl was that we already have a assistant prosecuting attorney level 2 and a level 1. I was proposing going to a level 2 and a level 1, so I found out that we already had a job description in place for an APA level 2. Now, the part that really makes it a prudent thing is that the pay has to be there too. The pay scale for an APA 1 is about $50,400, if memory serves me, up to $70,000. The pay scale for, and I did a mini RISE study and I attached that to the survey, and that information comes from the Prosecuting Attorneys Association. And it covers the prosecutor-elect, the chief assistant, APAs, office managers, clerical staff, victims' rights coordinators, all that stuff. So that's what I gleaned that information from. When I did a comparison on counties of similar size, we discovered that there was a deficit in what we can pay, or what we are paying right now. When I do a comparison of surrounding counties, those counties that just neighbor Lapeer County, it's a very, very stark differential in the pay. We're paying substantially lower than what that average is. So I gave you two averages, one being a conservative average, but you also have to consider the locality too, because we still compete with positions in Oakland County and Macomb County and St. Clair and Genesee and Tuscola and all the surrounding counties. So I come to you with a conservative estimate of that. And what I'm proposing is adjusting the pay scale for an APA 2. And I'm only asking for authorization of 2 of these level 2 positions within the office. That's all the funding I'm going to ask for. To start where the APA 1 step, final step is, which is about $17,400 a year, go up to $84,000 a year through another series of steps that person can graduate up to. It's critical to have experienced people. This is a skilled position. This is not a clerical position where it's convenient to bring someone in and expect them to learn that job within a year's time. To get someone to the level where they can handle serious felony matters without constant supervision, it takes probably 3 to 6 years at least to develop the trial experience and develop the experience with handling cases and witnesses and dealing with the law enforcement agencies. So with approval to go forward with 2 of those positions with that commensurate pay scale up to 84 where the APA 1 level ends and it would go up to $84,000 annually is another request that I have. One of the things I know that there's not a pile of money in the back room that we can just go and tap with without any consequence here. Everything that I'm proposing in this reorganization plan still saves money. So we're within budget, within the prosecutor's budget. To change those positions around, so we're gaining some efficiencies through the elimination of an office manager position, which is about $50,000 a year. If you look at those 2 APA positions I discussed, you're talking about an increase of, I say conservatively, $15,000. This is a round figure for each of those positions. And that's exclusive of taxes and all the other things that go on behind the scenes with payroll. But with the efficiencies we're gaining from elimination of the office manager position, rolling that out into more pay for those 2 prosecutor positions, as well as a bump in pay for that domestic relations coordinator position to take it up to a 7, which is about a $6,000 a year increase, not a lot. The savings we get from office manager is about $50,000 a year. And I kind of summarized this in my reorganization plan here. So we're really still within budget there. The last piece, which I recognize is the most controversial, is I'm proposing to add the general counsel position as a formal title to the office of the prosecuting attorney and the prosecutor-elect. The reason for that is that all of you are aware that over the course of the last few years we've been in a situation where this board has had to resort to outside counsel for legal opinions, advice, review of contracts, and a variety of things. When I did the RISE study with the pay information, I did the same thing for the pay scale for the elected prosecutor position. The elected prosecutor position is well below the average for the surrounding counties and below the average for counties of similar size, those 2 different averages I discussed. What I'm proposing is bumping that up to an average. With that bump of the pay scale for the elected prosecutor position to become an average to the counties of similar size, with that I would be happy to do all of the civil counsel, general counsel work that I've already had experience doing with you folks while I was in the position of Chief Assistant Prosecutor. That comes to the forefront because I think it's important for the county going forward, not just for John Miller, but for whomever is going to be the prosecuting attorney in the future. Individuals that may serve on this board, to be in a position to say, we can rely on this elected prosecutor to be our general civil counsel, but what are we getting for that? What I'm proposing is that I would relinquish I would sign an exclusive representation agreement that says, I don't represent anybody else but Lapeer County in the capacity of prosecuting attorney and general counsel going forward. So we eliminate all these problems that we have right now with a prosecuting attorney who has many conflicts, and the board cannot use that advice. With that said, the last piece of that budget comes together from my investigative work with that portion of the budget was spent on general outside counsel. The number is probably around $30,000 to $40,000 a year. What I'm proposing to bring the average up for the elected prosecutor position is an increase of $17,000. So there's still savings there. So in total, the entire plan is a savings not only to the prosecutor's budget, but also a savings outside the budget on a limited scale of that 17. I still think in my calculation of the numbers, it all comes in under budget. But if it were to be above the prosecutor's limited budget, the county's general fund budget, when it resorts to the calculations for what's being paid for outside counsel, definitely presents a savings overall.
I have a couple questions, because when you make the statement that this doesn't include taxes and it doesn't include certain things, doesn't include certain benefits, how much are those benefits costing the county? Because there's no such thing as something not costing so much money. So if you've got someplace you want to go to $70,400 or $84,000, and you don't include the benefits, for example, like what we put in everything. And there's a tremendous amount of money that we spend, the other half of Social Security, all sorts of things go into those costs.
It's 30 to 35%.
Wages, pardon?
It's 30 to 35%.
30 to 35% additional.
Healthcare being a big part of that.
But healthcare is already being paid for those positions.
Well, but as the salary goes up, a percentage increase.
So you're talking about incremental increases.
Yeah, it's not the total.
The expenses are already there, but
yeah,
we're going to pay you a little bit more along those lines with the increase in the salary. And the only reason I didn't include those is I don't have the exact numbers for that.
Well, I understand.
And that's why I disclosed that.
Every year we have to negotiate with somebody over our healthcare costs, which continue to increase year after year after year. You know, you may say, or we may say, it doesn't matter, I'm not picking on you. But if you got $70,400 that you want to pay for a prosecutor, and then you want to add another $25,000 on top of it for benefits, I don't know where we're coming from when we say we're saving money. The cost benefit, John, I mean, I understand what you want to do, and I understand why, and I understand that you need the help, and I understand you need some professional people in there. But let's be honest with everybody, how much this is really going to cost the taxpayers.
Understood.
That's only fair.
It is a fair statement, I agree with that. That's why I disclosed that in my, I'm not trying to hide the ball from anybody, act like it's just, you know, I disclosed that in my plan, saying, hey, these are rough numbers and they're exclusive of all the other incremental costs that would exist under the plan. I still think we come in very close. And it depends on what part of the plan you want to approve. If you guys want to approve limited parts of the plan and not the plan in total, that's for this board to decide. So it's kind of a moving target, right? Because if we adopt certain portions of the plan without adopting others, we could be well below budget. If we adopt the plan in total, it's going to be close and maybe a slight increase.
Well, when it comes to corporation counsel, we definitely need you as our corporation counsel, just like we always have in the past. Up until the last prosecutor, if that's what you want to call him, until actually before that prosecutor, corporation counsel was always the job of the prosecutors to be the corporate counsel for this board and for Lapeer County. It's not a matter of that decision was made only because of certain things that were happening in the office, you know that.
Sure. I understand that, and I understand the arrangement as it existed, but also under that previous arrangement for a very long time, there were 7 attorneys within that office. Now we're down to 6.
Well, there was only 7 when we were sold on a bill of goods.
But there was
By a
7.
certain prosecutor that we were gonna recoup all this money and we were gonna be fine and we were gonna be wealthy again, and we never got $1.
You did get $1. You did get more than that. You did. But I also, when I presented that plan, I had said it was gonna take 18 months. We only got 6 months into it, and the plug got pulled on it. So I, you know, in full disclosure, I did tell you that that was gonna take 18 months to build that program into place. And it's not anything that hasn't been done before, because other counties did it, and they ended up hiring another attorney as a result of their success. So
I understand.
That's a different issue.
I understand other counties, we're not other counties.
Yeah.
So, my quick math is
Go ahead.
incorrect. So Jackie, my quick math says, with the additional, I put 33%, that's in between, we'd still be saving about 12,000. That's
based on what?
based on, so I did the increases, and then 33% with the increase of what we're gonna have to contribute.
Talking about for the total department?
Yes, except the only thing I did not include the removal of the $30,000 to $40,000 in legal fees. So that's 12,000 without section, without changing general counsel. So with that, if we just went on the low end, which is about 30K, I would say, we'd say about 42,000 total a year.
Total savings you're talking about right now?
What was that?
Total savings you're saying?
Total savings about 42,000. Now, I did have one quick question though. That 17, I didn't do anything for that. Now with that 17, that wouldn't be an increase in our cost share, would it?
Yes, they're
That
asking
would
for
as
a
well?
pay increase.
Okay, so that would be a slight increase, so probably a little less, somewhere around 35. That's probably really conservative, but we'd have a total savings if we got rid of all of our corporate counsel, outside counsel, made them our corporate counsel, made these changes, we'd be saving about $35,000 a year.
You're only getting rid of the corporate counsel, not like Howard Schiffman and all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And I know you had a bad year last year, but if you look at previous years.
Yeah, well, personally, I mean, I've said this since I first got here, I want to get rid of the Cox corporate counsel. I remember, what was it? It was 4 or 5 months ago where we got those 2 perfect bills that reached exactly $10,000, and they're 3 months apart. So as soon as I seen that, I said I want to get rid of them because
The other thing you gotta weigh in is the increases that he's requesting. You know, by deleting one position, then they're gonna cover all that.
There's one other gain that I didn't mention. We're probably going to be in a position to lay off one of the level 7 staff, only because they're running about 2,200 warrants last year. You go back to 2014, 15, and 16, we were running 3,500 to 4,000 warrants. So I think there's an efficiency to be picked up there, and I expect to review that the first week in January. I fully expect that we're going to be in a position that someone's going to have to be laid off as a result of that decrease in workload.
Let's ask the question to the public, John.
I think the confusion is he's budgeted, he's deleting an office manager. They don't have that now, and it's not in the budget now. I think that's where.
that's not in the budget at all.
I don't believe so, no. They don't have one, it's not budgeted.
I want to get back to Don's statement on 3,500 cases for 24, whatever you just said. So for the public, how is that going to change and why?
Well, we'll have to see how that changes when law enforcement reacts. I think there's a lot of frustration in law enforcement right now about warrants being denied and things being done because of policy reasons. I don't understand those reasons. I don't know what they are. But I've had a couple of meetings with some of our law enforcement agencies. I have another meeting tomorrow morning with the Sheriff's Department to try to discuss cases that need my attention as soon as January 1 rolls around. And we're going to prioritize those. So to answer your question, I anticipate the workload will go up. Just as a matter of policy, I know some of the generic policies in place right now are different than the policies that law enforcement has been accustomed to for a very long time, and policies that I engaged when I was the chief assistant. So it could change, but it's pure speculation to say it's going to change, an increase by a certain number. It's impractical to estimate what that's going to be right now.
So I think that one question that Brendan keeps bringing up about he wants to get rid of cops. Well, we put that out for bid. We actually sent that out for bid, and he was the only one that responded to that. Was that not true?
No, 100% agree with you. I 100% agree. I just don't think we need to do it anymore. I don't think we need Cox and his, what was his retainer, $10,000 retainer, whatever it was.
I don't know if
He didn't have a retainer.
He didn't have a retainer.
Well, he had something. There were several bills. And I just don't see why we didn't have it before. As you point out, we haven't had it before.
Well, that's because we had
prosecutors.
That's
we had a
what I'm saying.
Officers to do
Yeah,
it.
that's what I'm saying. So either way, I think that's one thing I think we should absolutely do is get rid of that. I don't see why we need to keep him around now. But I did have a quick question. That office manager position, when was the last time that $49,000 was in that budget? Do you know? How many years ago?
I believe it was still in there in 2018.
I don't know.
Who was the individual?
Kathy Strong was the last, oh, no,
No,
Lee
it was Lee
Huxwell.
Huxwell.
Lee
Was
Huxwell.
Lee one,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
But
it's-
she was Victim's Right
So she's
and,
been gone for a long time, and she was dual,
yes.
and then they never replaced it, so it's beginning of Mike Sharkey's term.
Okay. So that's not been in any budget since probably 2017 was probably last year. It was in there for 2016. Yeah.
So I guess my question is, and on the corporation counsel aspect of this, from a straight business viewpoint, this could be a really good situation for us, or it could be not a good situation for us, depending upon the services rendered, right? So I'd like to get a little bit better grasp on what those services would be, what's kind of included in what we're buying with that, what's not. I mean, obviously, you're still the prosecutor, you don't have unlimited time to do those services. At the same time, we all know that by law, a prosecutor can actually have outside practice besides being the prosecutor. And I believe that your proposal, you would sign something that says you're not going to do that.
Exclusive representation.
Exclusive representation. So, let me kind of talk out loud for a minute about something that came up in the last day that makes me very curious on this topic. If this board was looking to initiate litigation, is that something that a initial review on the possibilities of doing that would be included? Would the actual litigation portion of that be included? How far did you see that going?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think that it really is going to be on a case-by-case scenario. If you're talking about really involved litigation, complicated litigation issues, obviously I'm probably going to need to resort to some additional help for that. But if it's and I did this for a little over 3 years for this board and served in reviewing contracts and more the day-to-day stuff. But in that general counsel position, you're also asking for advice, right? You're asking for advice if you're considering this litigation, you're considering being a plaintiff in that litigation or defending that litigation. It's been my experience, excuse me, that this board has always resorted to the opinion of the prosecutor first and said, hey, what are we going to do with this? What we need to know what the legal ramifications of getting involved in this are. And so we would have those candid conversations going forward. Obviously, there are things like union. Mr. Schiffman's already been counsel for that. That would remain unchanged. There's litigation involving the state of Michigan or some other complicated scenario that comes up. I would address that to the best of my abilities, and I would say, hey, if I need help, I'm gonna raise my hand and say, this is pretty involved, we need to get additional counsel involved to assist through this. But I think those situations are fairly few and far between. When the county's a defendant, risk management's already fulfilling that role, where there's money involved, there's damages involved. So there, I don't know what, you know.
I think you kind of answered my question. I think what you're saying here, if I can paraphrase, is that if we were looking at entering into or some litigation, had some thoughts of that on behalf of the county, that you would review that, tell us what you thought our legal stand would be or wouldn't be, and what our chances of winning that might be. And if we decided to move forward with that, I'm assuming that you might tell us we need outside expertise counsel to do that, but you would certainly still be there with that counsel and advising us. Is that a fair assumption?
I think that's a fair statement. If I could just make one comment onto that. I guess I'm the exception when it comes to attorneys. I'm not the guy that knows everything. And I'll be the first one to tell you if something is outside of my comfort zone. If there's an area of law that this board wants to go into outside my comfort zone, I'm happy to investigate that, research that, and tell you the best of my ability, this is how I see it, but I'm also going to give you that disclaimer that says, this is not in my direct field of expertise, and I think we should get a second opinion.
So my other question is, this pretty much just talks about the representation of this board. I know for a fact that that the past prosecutors have been requested to give legal opinions, sometimes very extensive, to some of our department heads in the county. How does this apply to that scenario?
So that would still, in my opinion, that's still included in that general counsel role. You know, having done that for 3 years, I know, you know, and I tried to give better advice than what was given in the past. I would actually give them a memorandum, you know, give that department head a man. You ask this question, and if you've ever read an attorney general's opinion, it's kind of the same template. You know, here's the question presented, and here's the legal answer that I'm providing. So, you know, the way and that's something that I incorporated, and I think I was one of the few individuals that ever did that, because number one, I wanted the department to have something in writing they could rely on. I wanted to have something in my file that I could resort back to and say, I gave you this opinion on this date, and this is the circumstances given under. So I think that you know, it is a moving target. There are all these different scenarios that are hard to predict at this point in time. Take the last few years, for example, who would have ever guessed we'd have been involved in some of that legal wrangling. But I think it's prudent to try to formalize that arrangement, right? It's always been an informal arrangement where this prosecuting attorney role served to benefit the Board of Commissioners with legal advice and opinions. But I think that we've seen this situation pop up where maybe we need to tighten that up a little bit. And I come into office looking at it going, the people elected me to be prosecuting attorney. And with that comes a very definite set of marching orders, really. The fact that this general counsel piece has always been gratuitous in the past, I understand. I think it's time to formalize that and go forward. But I'm also asking, say, hey, if we're going to do all that, if I'm going to give you, you know, what I'm already signed up to give by being the elected prosecutor, plus something more, which no other elected official really does, comes in and says, yeah, I'm going to give you all this other stuff, I'm going to do all this other work for you. Additionally, all I'm asking is saying, hey, let's do that, but let's make the pay commensurate with the average, the low average. And make it formal where I signed an exclusive representation agreement.
Do we have more questions for John, or is somebody ready to make a motion to accept what he proposed? Go ahead.
Couple questions, John. On your proposal, you address all of the staff underneath the prosecuting attorney without discussing too much the chief assistant prosecuting attorney. That salary isn't listed in the flow chart. does the proposed salary increase on the attorney two positions, the high end, does that conflict at all with making them higher than the chief assistant prosecuting attorney would be, or do you know what that salary range, did somebody advise the salary range of that position?
Great question. It's my understanding that the chief assistant salary range ends at 89, I believe. I believe that to be the figure. I don't have that number in front of me. The only time it becomes a conflict is if there's a situation where somebody's achieved the final step of APA 2 scale, and somebody hires in as chief assistant starts at step 1. So then there could be the situation where chief assistant is at a lower pay rate than a senior APA.
We've had a county, what do you want to call it, policy of practice, but that came up with the undersheriff position in the past and a few other ones, and if that's the case, the person is always bumped up to whatever is the next scale. So I guess I'm kind of asking the administration that if your proposal doesn't address that specifically, do we know whether or not that would be the case in this proposal here, that at least the chief assistant prosecuting attorney would end up topping out higher than the proposed attorney two?
As he said, it might not, if they're in their 4th year and you hire somebody new.
No, I understand that hiring part, I'm just saying.
Then they would start at entry, they would still be lower.
The salary range of 2 being low to high, and then the salary range of assistant chief prosecutor, low to high. That should be a little, at least the top out, that should be a little bit higher for that. So that's one little thing that needs to get tightened up on. And then my other question is, I know I discussed with you when you were talking about these proposals. So the very first person you need to talk to is Cheryl, because with all of her involvement in labor for so many years, every administration so far has always given good logic for why the staff positions need to be at the levels that they are. But when you have labor contracts involved in it, that sometimes causes all kinds of issues, and my understanding from you was that you had those discussions with Cheryl. They were not labor issues. All of this is doable, what you're proposing here, is doable within our labor contracts. Is that still the case? Don't you share that opinion, that's still the case?
The prosecuting attorneys are not bound by any union.
Not them, I'm talking about all the staff.
The staff people, we do have to submit it to the union because it will be a change. And then he is proposing to delete one position,
yes.
So that would go to the union. We have the right to delete the position. You know, we have to do it according to the contract. So that is very achievable. The job descriptions, we just have to let them know if they have a problem, they contact us, and then we sit down and negotiate with them. But I don't think there's any, you know, we're not changing any steps. He's got 2 legal secretaries at step 5. And one's going to be at step 6 because she's a step 6 now. So, and then when that was gone, it revert back to the 5, and then he'd have 2 at 7. And he's changing the 1 from a 5 to a 7. So we do have to negotiate with the union to do all that.
So with those 2 questions that I just asked, that kind of indicates to me why the board can't take any formal action yet, because there's still a couple little pieces that we need. We need to know what that, on your proposal, what that chief assistant prosecuting salary range is right now. Also need to know that preliminary discussions have been done and it's doable or it's not doable, because we're not going to approve something that's going to turn around and violate.
Well, just a minute, Lenny. According to the union contract, is after it's been approved is when we submit it. I mean, we
right.
try to
No, I understand that, but
okay.
John has always previously at least entered into discussions with the key labor ahead of time, saying this is our thought process with the new coming on. There's some solid logic here. Do you see a problem with this? Or because if it's I see a major problem with this, no, it's not gonna, that sends a totally different signal to the board than, hey, we've had preliminary discussions with the union and they seem amicable to the, so I'm asking that that at least be done. With those two questions, I can see where I can support the majority of the concept, not the concept in its entirety, and that's why it's good to have the overview of a reorganization, but where you list the different paragraphs by number, I could see where each one of those needs to be kind of drafted as proposed motions, so that we have the ability to assist in some reorganization, where some other aspects of it we might want to hold off down the road, or we might want to have an issue with. Case in point, real quick, I could see the logic behind creating the first couple bullet points where you talked about the staff level being consistent. And if those were, most of the information is there right now where we could kind of off the cuff do a draft motion if we had it. But if those were listed, number one, right after the explanation, number one, draft motion to eliminate this, to change this to this, you have to do that. Under two, draft motion to, because I could support that. I could support the concept of, we talked about before, you do need to have a couple prosecutors that are going to be at least higher experience, that you can't have everybody right out of copy. You need to have a couple that are mentoring the younger ones and being able to handle the difficult cases that have been placed on hold for so long. And we have worked with previous incoming administrations to try and make sure that they're able to hit the ground running. So I appreciate all your thoughts in that. The only one that I definitely have an issue with right now would be the top one, the prosecuting. Again, I do believe that not only within our county, but it's even mentioned in the Verber book on county government, that it's pretty much general practice that the prosecutor is oftentimes relied upon as general corporate counsel. Just on those matters that you need to have a pair of legal eyes look at, and then if it needs specialization, you recommend specialization. And if it just required your legal eye, that's fine. I don't think we need to start going down the road of negotiating an exclusive contract to accomplish those purposes. I think we just need to, like was mentioned here, kind of revert back to the way it had been for so long before this last prosecutor. There were some significant reasons we mentioned why we had to do away with that. And just the salary that goes with it is going to create a lot of unintended consequences for us, because that opens up the door then to the entire upper echelon of county government being reexamined. And that's why I would much rather do that in piecemeal. I'd much rather try to address at least your workforce first, make it as workable as you can, and some of the other issues we might have to address a little bit further down the road. That's why I'd like to see just those couple things answered, and like I say, perhaps each concept just to have a draft motion prepared so that the board is able to maybe act on at least some of this stuff and get you some of the tools that you need in your toolbox.
Here's my, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and I agree. It's great, I think, to have this in front of us right now. Probably, I mean, it would probably be maybe even a little bit more suitable. Some of those actual office staffing changes to be put in place once you're actually the prosecutor after January 1st. Could be at the 7th meeting, but I think that might make sense because you still, quite frankly, have an acting prosecutor sitting in office. On that same note, I think the horse is out of the barn, and trying to put it back in is going to be just about impossible. And by that, I'm speaking of board's attorney representation. Because I understand the Verberg book says what it says, but the bottom line is the prosecutor's not compelled to give us any information. And he can look at, he can look at something and say, well, yeah, it looks fine just on a brief thing, but, or he can just say, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. So, I mean, unfortunately for us, for the county, that tradition has gone away, in my opinion. And I think that you're probably going to have extremely minimal counsel if you don't address that in some shape or form. I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it or not the best way to do it, but I don't think you're going to. I don't think you're going to go back. I just don't see that happening. The current prosecutor has not been corporation counsel for the county pretty much his entire term. Maybe 3 years out of his 4 years. And to say to the incoming, oh, by the way, we want you to do it, and just do it because you're a good guy, when the last guy didn't have to do it because we had issues, isn't exactly fair.
Well, by the same token, the last guy was understood that, okay, you're not going to do that, you now have more time to do the other stuff, so you're not going to get some of the resources that you need. And I'm saying in this particular case, it helps us if we can say that at the top, and he's able to provide that like it's historically been done at the top. I'm much more motivated than to try to make sure that, okay, if that's going to take a little bit of his time away from where he would otherwise maybe be more hands-on prosecuting, and other people underneath him have to do those roles, then we need to make sure that a couple of those people are prosecutor twos, or that he has a sufficient administrative staff to keep everything.
But that's where I go back to the business model, because quite frankly, under the current proposal, it's much more economical for you to go that route than it is to say, oh, when you come and ask for that 7th prosecutor, we're going to give it to you because we know you're busy on corporation counsel stuff. It has been for a long time, and I do agree with John that there needs to be some formality to this situation moving forward, because for the 20 years I've been here, every time we go into budget, it's an issue. The prosecutor says, well, I'm doing more and more work on behalf of the county as corporation counsel, and that's my justification for needing more and more staffing and more hours. If that relationship was formalized, that would take that off the table.
And aren't we trying to do that here?
I agree, but I mean,
from
a straight business standpoint, I think it makes sense. I hate to say that, and I do think the only other thing is that the way it's presented here, when it would be a straight addendum or an addition to the salary, I do believe you would have to take action on that this year, because we have to set the salaries before the end of the year. So if you're going to do that, I think you'd have to do it this year. The other things I think you could do in January.
And just to piggyback on that thought, I didn't dream this up in the middle of the night in my research and the information I got from the Prosecuting Attorneys Association, because I knew there was this expectation and there was the situation of conflict, and as I mentioned at the beginning, this isn't just what's best for John Miller. I'm trying to get to an arrangement that benefits the county going forward, no matter who fills these offices and positions. And the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan is where I've gotten that template from. Their survey of all the pay, it also denotes on that same survey whether or not the prosecutor serves as general counsel for that county, and it also denotes whether or not the prosecutor does that by contract or not. So that's kind of where I've borrowed some of these ideas to present to you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think there needs to be more discussion on this. And for example, the chart that you're talking about something probably we ought to look at. I am concerned, we have Amy Sell here as a resource. If we're going to talk about the topic of controller, she needs to leave, I believe, by noon. This meeting's going along. I think there are a lot of questions that need to answer. I'd sort of like to forward this discussion. I'll move the discussion to the next week's meeting. Continue.
Support. I don't have a problem doing that, though. The biggest concern is, though, you gotta remember what next week is. It's a full board meeting, and it's pretty much the end of the last meeting of the year. So moving a lot of things and just trying to continue to kick it down the road, that's interest, but if that's what you wanna do.
And John and I can work together to separate, John and I can work together to separate those motions out if you'd like us to.
Because that could make the issue go very fast.
Well, that scares me in itself.
Can I also recommend, if we are gonna move it to next week, could I get the amount of money that we paid to the Cox firm left from this year? Is that possible?
You probably want to look several years,
Or the
because
last
we
3
have
years.
some
I don't
specialized
think we paid very much
services.
on this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, look over the last 3 years.
Well, it wouldn't,
You know, we got
Corporation
the-
Counsel would not be just that, the Cox firm, because quite frankly, we used Howard for some Corporation
Yeah.
Counsel.
We use a lot of people.
Right.
Yep, I understand that, but just, because that's the one, the only reason I point that one out, because that's one that I picture as the one that we specifically separated out
But,
to do the bids.
but when we got the costs, we really have to have that deducted.
So, if I could just get that, you know, for me.
Even though we got some bad opinions, we got the cost though, didn't we? We made that work. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you for your
Is that
time.
what we're gonna do, moving it on? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you. See you next week.
Maybe wants to come up and talk to us, isn't there, a couple times?
I think one more topic
The appointments?
for Howard.
Oh, yeah, well, sure, there's more on there.
We can jump her up. I'm certainly, I would support that.
So the request from the board is to move 8 to 7 on the agenda.
Really? I don't see any 8.
No, well, 8 was the one that was this topic.
Administrative control of this.
Okay,
Can we do that?
No, but I will allow it. Are you, Amy?
Great, how are you all?
Good. Another one of those beautiful days.
So I'm here to support the discussion or determination of a path moving forward. I provided you all with summary feedback. You probably all had gotten additional comments and views from additional sources and the public. So now I'd love to facilitate and just be as helpful as possible at determining a path forward, which could determine moving forward with one candidate. It could be bringing one or more candidates back for additional interviews, or it could be starting the search from scratch. What I've seen most effective with other communities is to make a motion, for instance, to move forward with a particular candidate to enter into negotiations with a candidate if that is desired, and then having a discussion around that particular motion as opposed to a general discussion. My view is you have 3 amazing candidates, and you want to be very sensitive. It's a very competitive market right now. All 3 candidates could be receiving additional opportunities or being lobbied to stay where they are. So I do think with, if there is a desire to move forward with a candidate, that we would probably move forward in that direction today would be my recommendation. Again, if there's not, no pressure, we can continue the search in any manner that you'd like, but that would be my recommendation.
Good question, just so if you can frame these for me. What I have pricing for the 3 is I have Fox at 123,000. I have LaMotta at 115 plus, because it was, I think, 115 to 130 or somewhere around there. And then I have Quentin Bishop at 115, but there could be more because he basically wants what he has at LDC plus 115, right?
you just clarify your comment when you say pricing? You're talking about what
Salary.
individuals have
Yeah,
said,
sorry about
they
that.
are
Sorry about that.
asking.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're asking price.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's all subject to negotiation,
Yep.
obviously, and, but I would say that they're all, and you don't need to come up with that specific language here. I mean, I would think that our all are in that, 115 to 120,000 range. So I think they're all gonna be around the same range, but if someone comes back and part of the negotiation, you can't come to terms, obviously, then that won't move forward.
So,
I have, plus, we have the addition of a lot of places don't have that, there's pensions, different things out there we can do.
so in,
Rick,
your,
I couldn't hear you, Rick.
I said the other part I want to add to that is, when you're in negotiations, not always just about that, but we also have a lot of places don't have, and that's a pension, some other benefits to it. So, was that loud enough, Rick, that we have pensions and
He
other
was just
things
mentioning
we
the
can use for
pensions,
benefits?
how we have pensions and health benefits in addition, so we have more.
In addition to all that.
Yeah.
so moving forward, if we agree to enter into negotiations with one of the candidates, how does that look? Who does those negotiations?
I am happy to approach the candidate with the discussion. I'm happy to support drafting or providing templates, contracts. But I think an attorney would need to be reviewing those documents or using a prior document, and you all have the authority. I do not have any authority to make a decision, so, but I could be a facilitator.
Would you be a facilitator with what, with or I guess, I don't know, would it be better if you were a facilitator with one commissioner to be the point person on that? Is that?
That can be, that's fine as well. Yeah, the two of us I can work with someone on the board to draft that and to, so I'm very
Maybe
flexible.
with the.
Would you be willing?
With the acting.
Dial, would you be willing to do that?
Sure. And with that, I would like to involve the acting administrator on this as well.
She's gonna think they all want too much money.
That's exactly right. Say that anything worth $55 is too bad.
Well, that's a good check.
Okay? Comfortable with that?
So, when it comes to.
I do have a question, and it's for the board. And I'm not, it doesn't to me, if you're talking about Quentin, or you're talking about Fox, or you're talking about, when Mr. Bishop was brought before this board, he didn't have the background that basically we were looking for, because he didn't have the background in finance. And in fact, he had no qualifications in finance. So my question, no, he didn't. Not what we were looking for. I want to see, you're gonna sit there and tell me that he has a degree in business finance?
You didn't say that.
I
You
just
said had
did.
no experience.
I just said that in
The
one.
man was a principal, he was a school superintendent.
school
He
teacher.
runs, not a school teacher, well, now, Gary, your comments are degrading, just say what you're gonna say.
Well, I can't normally because you continue to butt in.
Okay.
I was asking a question
I'm
of the
gonna correct you
board.
when you're disgruntled, when you're.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. My question is, Lenny, if you're gonna take somebody like Quentin, and you're gonna put him in that position, he's gonna take a tremendous amount of training. Well, he is. I don't know who you plan on having training him, but I would actually suggest if you do that, that you have Cheryl come along for 4 months or 5 months to help train you.
I'll comment on it when you're done.
I'm done.
Okay. On your comment that he had no experience and no qualifications, that's your opinion.
finance.
That's your opinion, and you're entitled.
That's
That's not what he said.
not what I said at all.
I want to clarify exactly what you said. You felt you did not
I
need
was
to.
talking about finance.
Right, and on the aspect of finance, I disagree with that. You're entitled to that opinion. I disagree with that.
But he said it was that.
And I definitely don't think it takes anybody 4 to 5 months to learn. We've as county officials, just with oversight, have picked up on stuff like that a whole lot earlier than that. I don't at all think that that's necessary. I think that any capable administrator, which I believe all 3 candidates are, could clearly work with our team led by Jackie over there. And if there needed to be a little bit of historic information provided beyond what we've already got from our on records, from our auditors and our files or whatever, I think John Visco has already offered to do that in his role. And I'm sure Cheryl would be able to. We would have to do something again in 4 or 5 months. I think that's a ludicrous statement.
I can also tell, I mean, I can also tell you that I've spoken with Mr. Horton, and he said he was certainly available if anybody comes in, if they had questions, that he could be of service, he would make himself available for that. So he did tell me that. I do think it is interesting. And these 3 candidates, I think, are extremely interesting.
Very different.
Very different. And I don't know that I've ever been in the hiring process where I had 3 candidates that I think were all qualified to fulfill the job, but all brought very different skill sets to the table. So I think the question really lies at what skill set do you think best benefits the county? And arguably, let's just say the next 3 to 5 years, because that's really what you're going to expect or ask out of any of these. You might get 15, but 3 to 5 is what you're going to expect out of them. So I guess that's how I'm looking at it, how I'm coming to my decision. And amazingly so, some of the events that took place just in the last day or 2 have weighed heavy on that decision.
I think David Buchanan wants to use that.
Yes, that's for sure. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, and I understood exactly what you're trying to say, Gary, and I understand people saying kind of the finance background. I'm going to give you a little bit more information on this. First of all, one of the first things we did when we set this application up, we put the word administration in front of accountability, or accountability in front of administration. We did that for a reason, because there are 2 different avenues there. We have a lot in the county. As Lenny pointed to earlier, Jackie is the finance number, as Craig Horton was, and they're willing to help. But just for history, I look at what Lydia said also, and I agreed with this long before that. I look at how much smart somebody has in their brain and all their education versus how much somebody has in their heart. And the heart to me is the strongest thing you could have in a business. And that being said, I spoke to him, and I also know that he's ran multiple government finance boards, such as STIPA, LDF, Brownfield. So he has some background in that. And it's not in his educational paper you want to see. But I'm looking at somebody who has the heart of Lapeer, the motivation and excitement that they can bring to the community for change. And out of the 3, I have to tell you, the strongest one's going to come out Clinton. Yes, I agree. Dennis had well-spoken on what he does. My wife's in pharmaceutical sales, and so is Dennis. They're trained that way, to be motivation. Well, how is the heart? And what are the issues that are coming out of Grand Line? We don't know that. He doesn't have county experience. He has a city experience. And then we look at the other guy. He's been in retirement. He's produced kind of a chill time. I didn't see the motivation, excitement there for Lapeer. So the 3 that I think to bring the most excitement, positive, for what happens coming, would be my thing.
Can I speak? Sure. I've been thinking about this, and here's how I've here's how someone laid it out to me, and here's how I think it best equals what my thinking is. Let's say instead of his name being Quentin Bishop, his name was Kevin Sample. He served as a superintendent of a small specialized school district in the state of Indiana, who then has now been the LDC director, or not LDC, but development director for Ionia County for the last 2 years, and prior to that he was the assistant director of Ottawa County for 3 years. Would we look at Mr. Sample and say that's somebody we would want compared to the other candidates?
Is Mr. Sample a superintendent or a principal?
Superintendent, because I do believe that's what.
He was both.
He was both. He was both. So he was both. So he had both that experience. So that's the question I ask myself, and that's what I think the question we should ask ourselves is, it's not Quentin Bishop, his name is Kevin Sample. And would we take Kevin Sample and say, that person is just as qualified, just as ready to jump into it as some of these other guys? And you're right, Mr. Lamada was not a county person. He was a township superintendent and a township supervisor. And Mr. Fox was a city manager, which personally I can tell he was a city manager. It's the way he talked and he acted. He very much so had that sort of aura around him. But at the same time, I look at this and I say, the next 5 years are going to be really rough, I think, for multiple different reasons. And the other issue I have is, I want somebody who's going to come to the building and isn't going to have all these friendships, isn't going to have all these baggage, I guess you would say, and can go into an office and say, listen, we're going to have to cut this position. And it's not going to be, well, you know, Quentin, I worked with you at LDC and I can't believe you're going to do that to me. Or, well, you know, I know you this from this. I work with you on this board. You can't do that to me. Or, hey, you know, he works on that board and they were really good friends on that one board. So, you know, there's something going on. I don't want that, because that's what I think we unfortunately got stuck into too often. Go ahead.
I've just received word that we do have a withdrawal. Dennis is going to withdraw.
It's going to be my question about due diligence. I was going to wait till he was done, so I'm not surprised.
I'm not even.
Do you do something pending for this?
Well, that's an important piece of information.
Just let me, if I can say something here. What Gary was trying to say and what I was trying to say last week was what we set out. The employment qualifications, education, bachelor degree in business, finance, accounting, or public administration, or related field. Master's degree preferred. I think that's what you were trying to say, that Quentin wasn't qualified on the qualifications that we requested.
That's what I was trying to say.
That's what I was trying to say last week.
Yeah, not against
Education, education qualification.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've all had a chance to say something, so I guess I'm going to make a motion, and I'm going to make a motion that we enter into, we authorize Commissioner Henning to lead the team to enter into negotiations with Quentin Bishop.
I support that.
Is that a second?
I support it.
Yeah.
And although it's not in the motion, it's inferred or understood that that's in consultation with our labor attorney.
Absolutely.
That's fine. I'm just, but Brendan brought up another good point. You have a lot of friendships and things between this man and other people, the department heads and everything else in this particular county. When, you know, right now, have somebody walk down the hall, walk into administration, walk into the comptroller administration's office, and have past experiences and friendships with them. I don't know that's in the best interest of the county, but you got a motion forward.
Well, I think that's a double-edged sword. It can work to your benefit and to your detriment. So I kind of see, view that as a wash, because having those relationships can really be beneficial or it can be detrimental. So And I guess if the motion doesn't pass, then we move on.
Don't go there, but and I understand that as far as him having close ties, whatever. But I gotta tell you, just from the experience that we've gone through since this COVID episode, day one, I don't personally hang out with Quinn, not know him that well, but I know him from the community. And I can tell you what I've seen, and I think any of you that have gone through the economics groups have been involved with some of this stuff, the stuff that he's brought to this county, and the positive that he's brought to these businesses, these local businesses here in Lapeer. And what he has done for this community through this COVID-19 and getting grants and helping these people and pulling other people into it, I was very, very impressed. And so I look at that and I'm like, he didn't just work on one side or another, this or that. He brought everybody together. And I think that's a good thing. So I think we should really.
That's fine, Rick, we have a motion on the floor, it's time to vote, I guess.
Okay.
You can lead off the vote if you want to.
We should probably do a roll call on that.
I have a couple of comments. One is, it's an advantage and a disadvantage to have somebody who you know. But the fact that you know him, I think is more of a positive in this case. I mean, you have some sense of him. The other people can look good on a very short basis. I know of hiring people like that who look very good, talk very well, but then you found out that you were not getting what you thought you were getting. And I'm not inferring that's the case here, but I think you have some sense, because we do know him to some extent, that he is what we think he is, versus what came across in this short interview or other documents. The one thing I am concerned about, and I'd almost say I'd like to make conditional, is all of the people he's chosen as references to this point are county people. We have heard from Commissioner Snyder that he's well respected, and perhaps even Commissioner Kemp, well respected from St. Clair, what he did in St. Clair, which is very positive. We have one interview pending with a person who was very involved with him in Indiana in the superintendent and principal position that I would really like to get on the table before I make the final decision. So if I can vote in a way where that, as long as that's a positive reference, that we can go ahead and move forward then.
I don't think you have to vote in any way because of that, because obviously that's going to come back prior to us coming back to accept any sort of negotiation. So that we would still have time. Would that be correct?
Yeah, and the normal, I don't know if the language is in the motion or not, but the normal term is conditional offer of employment, and that means that if anything comes up on background investigation and stuff like that, so that's why you won't need to have, so long as you use that terminology in the motion, you're good.
Okay, but with that
Dial and
understanding,
Amy and Cheryl have to do that interview or whatever it is.
well, I'm not sure we have to sit in on it, but
We'll provide it, the notes from.
and you can see the drift of the questions that we need to ask, which are a little bit different than might be asked of somebody else.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Kemp?
Yes.
Commissioner Jarvis?
No.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Schneider?
Yes?
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Commissioner Henning?
Yes.
Chairman Roy?
No, motion carries.
And
That's pretty much all there is to that.
we got a few pieces left. We'll see where we go. And if there's any monkey wrench in the thing, we'll be back next week.
And I don't have any,
I
don't have any personal indifference to that petition.
No, I don't either, it's just, I don't.
Just a little skeptical of what we're looking for here, and what we need, and where we're going, and that's all.
Well, I think, in my opinion, the reason I vote yes is Quentin was my number 2. Number 1 dropped out. And in my opinion, my number 2 and my number 3 were like 3 spaces apart in my head.
Right.
So I really didn't see an alternative.
Your horse scratched, huh?
Yeah. Your horse scratched, huh? I saw that coming. I watched your face, but all of a sudden, wasn't good, was it?
No, I didn't see any other alternative.
Okay, we gotta move on.
Anyway, go ahead,
Got a lot of
Mike.
stuff left to do.
Thank you, Amy.
Good, thank you, I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Mr. Chairman, I would move 7A.
Request to pay Howard. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Draft proposed personnel motions attached.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to move, well, I'm going to do these in 2 pages. I would move 1 through 5 on page 1.
I'll support all of them, there's no additional cost of the contract applied by section.
So you're doing 3 through what, 5?
1 through 5.
1 through 5. All right, so first thing we gotta do the minutes, right? You wanna do them all at once? Yeah, personnel. Consideration to the draft minutes of November 5th, 2020, personnel committee.
That shouldn't be on there. It should just be the draft personnel motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't here, so you guys had to enlighten me in everything you've been doing, which will all come out and wash down the road. All right, what do you got?
I move motions 1 through 5 on page 1.
All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
And I will move motions 7 and 8 on page 2. Support.
We got a motion and support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
I should be noted on those two also, additional cost to the county.
Of course.
Do it any other way. Anything else in there, Ian?
Mr. Chairman, I will move motion 7C, which is the Wrecker extension contract. I am assuming that this has been put in front of us by Scott, the sheriff, and that he has checked with the providing companies and they're willing to extend that.
Actually, Scott said that the administration handled that to keep him out of it, and so I called them all, and they have all agreed to extend it for 1 year.
Well, thank you. That's not quite the truth, as you know.
That's right.
That was really written by myself and Bob Rapson.
Right, but it did come forward.
And I was involved in that one, we did that 20 years ago.
Yeah, but it is a good agreement. It
Well, I
does save
think
the
he means,
taxpayers.
I think he means the renewal part of it for another year.
I understand.
If he wanted to stay separate of it, I appreciate that.
But I know why he wants to stay separate from it, actually, because of Ernie and because of what goes on with the big heavy-duty haulers, that's why. We got a big contest about that. And we actually, when he remembers back when Bob Rapson and him, we all were talking about that. This was supposed to be a 3-year deal, it wasn't supposed to go on for infinite, right?
This was, I think this is the third 3-year deal. We had 3 years, now we had 3 more, and we're getting an extension.
Oh, I don't know, when he and I worked on it before, we were both young men.
This one, we're on, this one only approving 1 year.
Right, this is only a 1-year extension.
Yeah, 1 year extension.
And you probably should look at that in October to see if you want to go out for bids again.
So we did not go out for bids on this, we're just extending the contract. I think that's the part we wanted to clear.
I think it is fair to say that this was a very, very contentious issue prior to us doing this. We were getting complaints after complaints of literally constituents just being, it was highway robbery. And once we put this into place, I think that all of the participating companies have acted very honorably. And the proof of the pudding in that is that at least I have not had one complaint by them, padding the bills in any way, shape, or form. This all goes to the fact that for Brendan some of the people in the audience. This goes back to the county sheriff's department goes to an accident, and oftentimes, and technically they're supposed to ask the person. Sometimes they don't because of expediency, and I understand that. But technically, they're supposed to say, "Is there a record company you prefer us to call?" And most of the time, the people say no. And we used to have a rotating schedule. And anybody could put their name on there. If you had if you had a chain with a hook on two ends, you could pretty much put your name on that list, and we would rotate through it. Well, there were times where people were getting billed to go a half a mile. They were getting billed, $600-700. They were
impound was the biggest.
People were impounding cars, leaving at 3 o'clock on Friday, and saying, "Well, we're not open till Monday, so we're going to collect $45 a day from you just to get your car back." It got so bad, and this is kind of ironic, my sister-in-law went in the ditch and I went out there, and as a matter of fact, I called Mr. Zender because he does have a roll-off, and the sheriff's department showed up, and I talked to them and said, "We're good, somebody's coming." And a wrecker showed up and tried to hook onto the car because they heard the information go over the radio and insisted that the sheriff's department called them. I know for a fact they did, and I was talking with the deputy. It got really, really bad. So this really was a great answer to that. So anyway, and it saved the taxpayers a lot of money.
And I'll
Does
add-
it, Brian, do you want to be included in the next, do you have a roll-off? Don't you want to be included in that service? No?
Not one little bit. I think the contract works just fine the way it is.
I don't know, Ian and I, we don't get any fruitcakes or anything anymore.
In the Lapeer area, I know there are firms, or a firm at least one, that would like to get a chance to bid on this, so.
Well, actually, the sheriff's department would like to be able to alternate those two companies.
We probably need to move to at least.
That's more political.
Encouraging.
That's political, yeah, I understand
competitive
that.
bid process
We
coming up.
just didn't realize it in time.
All right.
I put it on my calendar now.
How early can you put a bid out before a contract's up?
I would say August would be September.
Did we have a second?
Yeah, what?
Did we have a second for that motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Rick?
I think
You
it's
know,
myself.
I have a question, I'm sure everybody on this board would like to. When we talk about elected officials, we talk about salaries, and we talk about, when does that have to change? When do we have to
We have
put?
to have it done by November 1st to decrease the salaries. You can always add to the salaries, but you can't decrease
So we
salaries.
can add to them, though we can't decrease them, is that right?
Now that you remind me, that's right.
November 1st, did they change it? Because it used to be that you had to set the salaries by December 31st.
No, it's before the
Right.
election. It's
Before the
November
election.
1st.
So people knew what they
did
were.
change that now?
Yeah, you can't just cut the person's salary that got in that you don't want. You can increase it though.
Okay.
It's still awkward.
Yeah.
Because every elected official will want the increase of theirs.
All right, we need to, request to approve one-year contract extension.
vote on that?
We got that one.
We need to vote on the record contract.
Record one? All right. We got a motion to support. All in favor, so say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, motion carries. Request to approve renewal of workers' compensation agreement for 2021 to 2023.
I'll move it. Support.
Our acting
Do we all know
administrator,
exactly what that
any
is?
recommendation on that?
No, we only got a 1 year on the Midwest because of COVID. It was a 30% increase. 30% increase, and they'd only do 1 year, so.
Okay, board appointments.
We need to vote.
Need to vote on it? Yep. We gotta vote on all this stuff, you guys. We have a motion and support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries. You got one board appointment, is that right, Dial?
Well, one that I've got to fill, if it's agreeable by the board.
It's gotta be agreeable to the man at the end.
Well, it's a board, it's a county board appointment for the district library board. In this case.
For his district, isn't it?
No.
No, it's your district.
It's the county,
I
we
don't
have
have
county
Columbia,
positions.
We don't have
No,
districts there.
I know what you're saying now.
You got Marathon, I don't.
Yeah, no, I thought you were talking about his badge was from Burnside.
It's not a district, it's a countywide. In most of the district, other than, I think it's Mayfield and Lapeer City, not sure, maybe Lapeer Township. There are some that are designated for a certain township based on the districts.
Okay, do you want to make that appointment?
I did pass out the one application got to this point for an Amanda Klug. And I guess I would nominate her for this position.
I'll make a motion, nominations be closed, and unanimous ballot be cast.
Again, and then you want to call a roll on this appointment? We
Just
don't
need a
have
vote.
Just a vote. We have a motion and support, all in favor, say aye.
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 Same sign, motion carried.
Also, under GLS, I forgot, we do have something there, and I do have a report. Michael Hemmingson is agreeable to continue on with the new term, and I would nominate him.
Make a motion that we close nominations, and unanimous ballot be cast.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
I did not get a hold of Rick or Dave Bell.
You didn't get Rick?
What do you want?
No, Rick,
Van
didn't
Happen.
happen
Oh,
for
okay, sorry.
GLS. Do you know if he's willing to serve another term?
Can we do it conditionally?
I think he would be.
He has no problem doing
Right,
it.
and Dave Phelps, I think, is fine, because they haven't met in a couple of years, so I would do both of those.
Okay. We can do it non-conditionally or
Building authority, we're not building.
So I'll guy from North Branch up there is the guy that calls all the football games. He hasn't been used a lot lately.
I'll nominate Rick Van Happen then to continue.
I'll make a motion to close nominations and cast unanimous ballot.
Support.
All in favor, so say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries.
And Dave Felt, I'll nominate for Building Authority.
Make a motion to close nominations and cast unanimous ballot.
Support.
All in favor, so say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion carries. I do have something that this board, we all need to discuss, need to look at, is that the amount of people, COVID, the amount of people dying from COVID, especially in the northern part of the county, has really increased. I think Brandon can tell you that, what's happened up in Deerfield. I mean, had another member of the Deerfield board died yesterday or whatever it is, so that makes a supervisor's wife, that makes another member that's on that board. You want to go right across up there, I'm telling you something, we're killing people every day. This thing is killing people. So we got to be careful when we take a look at this, the way we treat it, because it's not the flu. And Rick will agree with that now, it's not the flu. And there's a lot of people dying from this, so.
I lost a friend
You lost a friend?
Tuesday morning, now Major.
Yeah, Mel was a friend of mine.
Well, I wondered if he was.
He was a friend of mine, he was a friend of Dial's back from when we started doing some of the veteran thing. I know, he's a hell of a guy, he died.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. So it's not just a few people, it's not just young people, it's not just old people.
Do we want to revisit closing down for January 28th, or December 28th, 29th, and 30th? Because of the COVID and because everyone's going to be out visiting and a skeleton crew here anyways?
Let's spread it, pay extra for the people who aren't going to be here. Because I think the issue that we all have is if people go home paid, then people who are here not getting any extra pay. I mean, that
We should probably put that on, we should probably put that on the next meeting.
We've been doing that for 4 months. We've been sending people home every week. They've been going home to work at home while a certain group of people stay here and work.
Well, it's
every
even
day.
worse though, because if we sent them home and we said, don't even worry about working, paid, yeah, it's a paid sent home, it's not go home and work. And you're
All right, so you answered the question of what we do about the COVID and about the dying.
Well, that's what I
So
said.
I can sit there and argue back and forth, back
Either
and
we
forth,
do,
back and
either we
forth
say,
about this or
you're going
whatever.
home with no pay, which I don't think we can do, because it's probably contracted days. Or we say, if you have to be here, we're gonna give you hazard pay for being here for those 3 days. I think it's the only fair thing to do.
I think we already gave some hazard pay.
But.
Yeah, we already gave them hazard pay.
Oh, yeah, but
Or we
you-
just leave it alone.
We give every one of them
Yeah, or we just leave it alone, I agree, or we just leave it alone.
We already give them $1,000.
I know, as I said, or we just leave it alone, I think we should just leave it alone.
If everybody continue to do what we've done on the whole pretty well, follow the requirement.
I mean, we're still under, if you can work from home,
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
work from home. So that's the department head's decision, correct?
Yeah, I agree.
And we can't close down the courts anyway.
Yes, you can.
They
We can close down this building anytime we want.
They got permission to close them down.
The court's got permission to close. They have permission to close right down.
But doesn't that end 12 days, so the 20th or whatever date it was, because.
No, the permission, Lori has, to close the courts, you have to get the special permission.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the
And she got special permission for the 28th, 29th.
okay, now I'm actually talking about the work from home stipulation, because that ends with
That ends
a
the.
MDHHS, and that's actually before the 20th anyhow.
Unless
So,
it's extended.
unless it's extended.
Which it will be.
Which it will be. But just thought I'd point that out too.
Well, it was a thought, so I guess the board doesn't care much, so we need another motion, I guess.
We're gonna have commission reports?
I thought we already had
Public
it
time?
for
Are
the
we
whole
still
thing.
shaky? That's, I'm
Oh.
putting my food down.
Oh, you got public time and then.
Yeah, no, we got a closed session.
We do.
Yep.
You want an update on labor negotiations?
You want an update on labor and where we're at? We're gonna have to have a closed session. Should be a short one.
We should do commissioner comments.
We should do
Couple
public,
questions
our
were
last
asked
public
during-
time and then.
Right, a couple questions were asked during public time, but they've stuck around.
Yep.
Okay.
There's-
Just, if you can visit that thing, I don't need to say any more, but if you can visit that, pretty controversial, but the way things are going, I'd like to get a response, but I understand.
We can check into that. I have not heard that rumor.
The reason the rumor is that way is because, there was supposed to be, a long time ago, another package. It's been held up, and so the rumor's saying it won't go until this action happens.
You're talking about a federal package?
I can give you an update.
You might as well forget about that, that's not gonna happen.
No, what
My-
I'm saying is.
Yeah.
My comment on that is if it happens, we have nothing to do with it either way.
Right.
Well, you're saying there's no action that can be taken to change it.
If the feds come down and say they're gonna do a stimulus package, and you have to be vaccinated to be able to receive it, there's nothing we're gonna be able to do, one way or the other, to do anything about that. Or, my guess though is it's probably just rumor mill.
I think that's illegal.
I don't know how they can do it because they don't have enough vaccine to get rid of those people for
Well,
months
I don't know how
anyway.
they're gonna fit that
What
chip
it
inside that
actually
small
came
meeting.
from
anyhow.
is, when they were doing discussions, certain members of the House said, well, okay, we're gonna do this, and then to incentivize vaccinations, we're gonna tie it to stimulus, but we never got beyond that. It was all in discussion talks.
Gotcha.
And I didn't even know I left Washington. I only know that because I know
Was it the
someone who works
newspaper?
for. Well, actually, I know someone who works for Mitch McConnell's office, and that was mentioned. So I don't even know how that got out there.
I know
That
it's
was-
controversial.
Yeah, that was back in like July. I heard that.
It hit the media.
Yeah, somewhere.
I seen it either on the news or something last week.
No, yeah.
It was just a
Okay,
talk.
so you wanna go into the commissioner time, or second public time, you wanna go commissioner time? Brenda?
I got it.
Nothing, Brenda?
Couple of things. Refuge, Cheryl, do we want to talk about refuge at all?
we don't have anything. We can possibly pay for the refuge staff for the person that has to stay the night through our COVID grant. That's the one thing that they said possibly we could pay for it. They have not confirmed yet. They have not confirmed anything on that CBDG grant. And it has to be spent by December 31st, but we would be able to reimburse them, and it would be like $5,000.
Good Jackie shaking her head, we're not getting any of that money back.
No, that's not, I was just frustrated that we have to spend it by December 31st and they won't give us.
They won't tell us
They
what
won't
we
give
can
us
spend it on.
any direction on
They
what
won't.
we could
Right.
spend on.
They
Very
said
frustrating.
Answer phones.
if the courtroom, if we would have done that because of, emergency, they would have paid for it, but now they don't know if they can. I mean, everything, the only thing I know we could do is we could buy a trailer. And we don't need one. So it's been really frustrating. They were supposed to let us know last Thursday. The meeting got canceled. It was Friday. I emailed her yesterday, or Monday, and Tuesday, and Wednesday. And if I haven't heard from her by the time I get back up there, I'm going to her boss and say, what's going on? Because we've got to have everything in by the 31st, or we don't get any of our money. So we're just gonna submit some bills then and see what happens. But that would be one of the bills they said they would pay for in a conference call is for the homeless shelters, the refuges that, because of the COVID, they have to staff them.
I don't know. Normally what they do, don't they allow us to use containers for homeless people?
Yeah, I don't know, we might have been able to buy them. Honestly,
Honestly.
there was COVID money for restaurants to buy the igloos so they could eat outside.
I understand that.
And I know Lake Inn did that, and it's $150 at night and $200 on the weekend, and they're sold out.
I was going to say, the chairperson for the committee, I think, resigned, but that was in the notes that I got. I don't know if you got those, but
No, I've
they
been
do
working
have.
with Wade.
Yeah, Wade is still going to continue to run it, really. So they are going forward. They have already moved out to the Michigan Youth Camp. They have 8 people there.
Where is the Michigan Youth Camp?
Attica.
Oh, it's out there, that one?
The horse, yeah.
And they've never had payroll, so they are looking at hiring a payroll service to do it, which is pricey, so I've offered to maybe, we're gonna sit down and see if we can do it through Pine. So be savings too.
So there is movement. They are trying to keep it together. We'll see if hopefully they can. They do have, I know they had a note that there was a family that needed residents, and they were unable to fill that because of the space issues. So not everybody is getting served who might need it.
I thought there was a family that also needed a hot water heater or something like that. A gas hot water heater or something.
Go back. This is supposedly a homeless family. If that made them homeless, I'm not aware of that.
It's not working out for them real well, any of them.
Things are a little more difficult this year. I was also going to mention, at least in my box, we got a letter from the governor.
A form letter from the
Yeah,
governor.
well, yeah, I think she must have sent this out to other people.
Ah, you think? Yeah.
What was it sent for? Because that was my question.
It was a response to your letter.
The resolution,
Response
or
to
the
your-
letter, not the resolution, or the letter we sent her long ago when
Oh,
this first started.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And we were part of Detroit.
Yeah, I didn't wait, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, we sent this one, what, 6 months ago?
Took them that long to get a form letter out?
But I think they've had a whole long list of other people that they had.
You'll get your Christmas card from Gretchen.
In all fairness, I think in 20 years, that's the first time we've sent a resolution that we've gotten a response, a written response.
I think so.
I think so.
Any kind.
We got one earlier in the year from her, I think. She pretty much told us to not worry about it, it won't bother you. Something else, that lady.
Let's see. Other than that, online meetings some which I seem to be able to get on, and others not, so.
Commissioner time, Rick, you got something?
I'll just give you two things. And first one, I just want to back up a little bit. I know we all passed it really good, but the one statement, when we move in the county, I look for somebody who's positive, wanting to move that county to become their big folks because we need it. But when somebody says, you know, they're connected to the community, I kind of took offense to that a little bit because of the fact that if all of us were in that boat, we would be commissioners, if that's the way people talk. So I think being close to the community, I think is going to be a good thing for all of us, so I'm glad we went that way. Like, just my 2 cents, whatever that's worth. The other part is that I'm in an area right now where we have more seniors than we do back home, and everything is open. And I understand, Gary, where you come from, because my cousin died, and I've had my family right now in the hospital now, we weren't sure they're going to make it. COVID is a nasty thing. We don't know who's going to come out of it. But we're at a war with that. There's nothing we can do to change that. But when you give me the stats, that you're going to close down our local businesses, when less people come in from COVID from those businesses than they do from Myers and Walmart, I have big issues with that. This can stop when our state has to stop. And we should be fighting that. But we can't stop what's happening with COVID. We're not going to cure it. We're not going to solve the problem. Vaccines are going to help. Wear your mask, wash your hands, take care of yourself. That's the best recommendation we can give anybody. But go out and live your life and get rid of this fear. That's what we have to shape. It is different than flu, I'll say that. For most of us, that's all we're going to experience, lighter flus. But for those that have those conditions, it's sad. And I'll cry like you along with our friends. And we pray that we get the vaccine to them as soon as possible so that they don't have that many more deaths. But we can't stop living because of it. So that's all I want to say to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, Jim, we already addressed your question on your public comment. And for Jim Alton in the back, who patiently waited all the way through our meeting on behalf of the DDA, thank you, Jim. I do want to clarify one comment that you made that kind of came off as disingenuous to the county. And I think it's just a perception thing, so I just want to kind of clarify this up. The reason why the county, which any millage that comes countywide, so whether it's for one of our departments, like veterans, or whether it's a countywide, like an EMS type of routine, if it's a countywide millage, it has to, the language has to come before this board and get approved in order to go out. We have no control over what courts do and what attorneys do, but we have been on both sides of the legal argument, which keeps changing back and forth. But basically, years ago, on one of the millage proposals that came before us, the issue was, if it says for veterans, and that money is going to anybody other than veterans, you have to list in that ballot language for the citizens so that they know. Oh, by the way, a small part of this is also going to go here or here or here. And there are a lot of tax increment finance authority districts. There are a lot of downtown development authority districts. And so we have had to, in the past, request information. Are you capturing this or not? And where the catch-22 comes in is if too many capturing districts all say, yeah, I want a small piece of that pie, and you have to list all that language on there, it confuses what would otherwise be a very simple ballot question for a lot of voters who don't understand who are all these entities and what's this all about, and it increases the no vote. It also put, I forget what community it was, I think it was Oakland County, in a sticky wicket on one of theirs where there's another court opinion out there that the ballot language has to be no longer than, or it's in violation. And if they were to list all of the capturing entities that captured from a, they violated that law. So stuck either way. Either you don't put it in, and geez, you didn't disclose it, or you did put it in, and your ballot language was too long. And like I said, guess what? We were on when the original EMS came through. We were on oh, you guys didn't have listed on there, and we specifically asked that question of EMS, because that came to us as an entity through their attorney. No, corporate counsel says it does not have to be on there. What happened? County got sued, and we prevailed, but that cost taxpayers money. It should have gone to emergency medical services, and instead it went to attorneys to have to defend. So when the county asks that question, the county asks that question because that's the advice that we're given by whatever is the legal opinion of the day when it finally comes before this board. It's one of the questions we've learned to ask. Does this have to be in there or not? And so we're asking that to make sure that the ballot that we end up passing is as legal as possible. One of my concerns, and we've shared this before, and I think everybody on this dais is of the same opinion. And your city used to be of the same opinion for dozens of years, because I've been here and representing that city now for almost 20 years. And the city has always bragged, we do not capture special millage, because we recognize the fact that the special millage is for this special need, veterans or seniors or whatever the case may be. And that's how we've always felt. Just because you legally can do something doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. Your city used to always brag that it was the wrong thing to do. Now all of a sudden the direction has been changed to where it's okay, it's the right thing to do. It could cause a slippery slope. You could end up having a lot of other DDAs that go, well, you know what, if the city is going to do that down in Lapeer, then we're going to start doing it too. And the next thing you know, we have to put all that ballot language in there, and it ends up costing Suncrest Medical Care Facility or senior millage to not pass. That would be a real shame. That would be unfortunate. So I think there are nuances to that whole issue that maybe aren't fully understood by the individual members of the DDA. I know we've been before you guys enough, but if ever you want us to have an open dialogue with you at one of your board meetings and just discuss why the county does what it does, asks whether you're going to capture or not, why we wish you wouldn't, that's why. So, just information for you.
Medical care facility without that particular millage money, we'd have to turn around and do something else with the medical care facility, because that is treated like, almost like grant money, and it comes across and what it does. It pays for Medicaid individuals to actually be housed in Suncrest. I mean, there's a lot of implications. I mean, it's all right. You guys pretty much made up your mind what you want to do, but
When's the next DDA meeting?
I have no idea.
We meet the fourth Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. at City Hall.
Are you still going to be doing it in December?
We do not have a December meeting, so the next one will be January.
January, so the fourth Wednesday?
Yep.
We have a lot of different departments here that are in the city of Lapeer, but don't necessarily need to be here either.
And how much, sorry, what time was it again?
Could be out in,
What was
the
that?
insurance building is in Suncrest, and out in that particular area, there's a lot of tax dollars that would disappear from the city of Lapeer because of that.
It's a very touchy issue.
It
It's one of those
absolutely
things
is.
that you can do it, but whether it's right to do it.
Well, and that's
we
where
should
there's
raise
going to
that
be
question.
agreeing to disagree, is we do it because we think it's right. Because we look at it
But
as.
this is
being
commissioner
downtown
time, if I
growth.
could, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
We didn't
That's
talk
fine.
in public. I have to tell you on this subject, I came in, well, first off, to ask when the next DDA meeting is, I think Mr. Rall just summed that up. They're doing it because they think it's right. I've been to the DDA twice in the last short period of time to discuss the EMS millage, which in their opinion, they chose to capture. We all know whether we like to admit to it or not, we all know the political bird's nest that set up the EMS capture, and why that happened. But I have to say, yesterday I came to this building extremely optimistic. I came here really thinking that we were going to be able to sit down with the Lapeer DDA and hopefully work out a win-win scenario that would really benefit the citizens of the city of Lapeer and all Lapeer County.
In the county.
When I got here and was informed by Cheryl that the DDA had voted to capture all extra voted millage, I mean, I can't tell you the level of disappointment that news brought. And it's all based on one thing. To me, it all boils down to one thing. They are now forcing every single taxpayer in the county of Lapeer to if their desire is to give money, their hard-earned money, to provide for the veterans of this county, to provide for the senior citizens of our county that need that help, to provide for those folks in Suncrest who are without a doubt the most vulnerable population that we have. Those same taxpayers now have to agree to allow the city of Lapeer DDA to skim a portion of that tax dollars away from their intended purpose and go to buy streetlights or whatever the DDA might find. Flowers, who knows? Sculptures in a park. And even though I totally 100% understand it's legal, I personally do not feel that it's even ethical for them to put the taxpayers of the county in that position. It amazes me, and they're the only ones in the county doing it now, and they're going to do it on every single millage that comes up. I hope, and when I said that one of the reasons I voted to enter into negotiations with Mr. Bishop is because I sincerely hope that his skill set can bring some light to that troubling relationship. And you know, it just really, we went through this. We fought, in my opinion, for what was right. I'm not saying, we've had problems with the city for a long time, ever since I've been here for 20 years. I'm not saying it's always the city's fault. I'm not saying it's always the county's fault. It takes two to tango. I understand that. There's probably enough blame to go around. But the bottom line is, on the DDA capture, what's right's right and what's wrong is wrong. And it doesn't matter what the end result of what they're going to do with money is. Once you've captured that money away from what its voted intentions were, everything else from that point on is tainted. So I know that, you know, I mean, I only have one more term or one more meeting here as a commissioner. I would really hope that this commission would not give up this fight, because it truly is what is right and what is fair and what our veterans, our seniors, our most vulnerable populations deserve. And that is that when somebody goes to the poll and votes to give their tax dollars for that purpose, 100% of those tax dollars go for that purpose. with that, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. And I understand this is commissioner time, and I don't know if you want to entertain that motion. I can put that motion on next week's agenda, or I can make that motion right now, which I will defer to the board for that. I will tell you what the motion states. The motion states, this board directs the county administrator to send a letter to Lapeer DDA, the city of Lapeer, and Lapeer Chamber of Commerce that all events currently scheduled or requested to be scheduled on the Lapeer Courthouse Square, including but not limited to the pavilion area, are not permitted until a formal request is made in person and approved by the county board. So, we have a motion, and arguably what the DDA will tell you is that their entire existence is to drive economic development to downtown. We have a motion currently on the books, a standing motion, that this board will not participate in any economic development with any municipality that is capturing extra voted taxes.
I would support that if you want to move.
So, thank you. I don't know that the chair will entertain the motion yet or not, but, so.
That's easy, I'll entertain it.
Well, then I'll make the motion. And I will I will just say, we have the motion already on the table, we've had it for a long time, that this county will not participate in economic development with any municipality that captures extra voted villages, and therefore, i.e., any activity that the DDA is part of, or the city is part of, because the city is the entity that can vote to have a DDA or vote to get out of the DDA.
Right.
They have the ultimate hammer. So any of those activities would be considered economic development and therefore should not happen. So I will make that motion, Mr. Warren, I believe, supported it.
We have a motion, we have support for it.
I wonder if we maybe should wait.
There's no waiting on this, Dial. This thing needs to come to a head.
Whether we want to get into a.
Dial, with all due respect, we've been to them. We've been to the DDA. The DDA, Mr. Alt himself, with all due respect to Mr. Alt, just said, we have a difference of opinion. We think they shouldn't capture from extra voted. They believe it's right. He just sat in this meeting and told us this. And he's 100%. What Cheryl and I heard from from his board chair, and I don't know if the other gentleman was vice chair or not, but two of his board members, that's their belief. That's what they're going on. And so, you know, in our situation, you either, you know, they're all in. Make no mistake about it. They are all in. And that's what they reiterated to us yesterday. Cheryl, if I'm saying something wrong, please correct me.
We actually had a letter at one particular time from the city of Lapeer, from the DDA, from the chamber, actually stating that they would not capture extra voted village.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, something changed inside the board, and David Churchill rewrote the rules. And then all of a sudden, then it became an issue where they started capturing extra voted. We always had that rule. We've had that rule for years. I mean, if you want to capture extra voted, that's fine. But don't come back to us and ask the county to allow you to increase the size of a DDA district, a TIFA district, or anything else, because we have the ability to say no to that. I'm not so sure they're aware of that, but they will find out about it in the near future.
In all fairness, this motion does not do anything other than have them come to this board to request the usage of any of those facilities. That's what it does. And this board at that point in time can agree to it or not agree to it, or come to some sort of they can, I guess, agree to disagree if they want to. But that's what the motion does. It doesn't say they can't use it. It doesn't say that we'll never let them use it again. It says if any of those entities want to use it, they need to come to this board and they need to have that discussion. And I think that's extremely important.
Is there any, as far as we know, are there any events coming up within the next month? The reason I ask is because here's my thought. Honestly, here's my thought. They want to capture money, that's fine. The fact that I'm going to have to pay for DDA, okay. I want to capture the market back. My thought is why, because I'm assuming different groups rent out that pavilion, correct?
No. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of history on that.
Clear that up.
So what happened was, the I don't know, city, I guess the DDA came to the county. Cheryl would know more, said, we want to build a pavilion over there. There was a contract drawn up. Whatever happened. The contract was never signed. It's irrelevant now because it was a 15-year contract. So since that, or at some point in time, I don't know when this happened, but what's been currently happening is the actual pavilion itself has been being scheduled out by the DDA.
Scheduled out to who?
To
different groups,
to
right?
whoever. We have not had that
Different
on
groups.
our rental sheet. If you want to go have a wedding at the old courthouse, we had a rental rate for that, and that was that.
That's what I'm
we could do
asking.
that.
Do they?
They've been doing it. They've been renting that out. Whether it's for, whether they're getting paid for it or not, I don't
That's what
even
I'm
know.
asking. Yeah.
Obviously, when somebody goes to the farmer's market, and the argument will be, well, that goes into the advertising. I mean, that's all part of it. It goes into the business. So when somebody goes to the farmer's market, they're paying to be at the farmer's market, right? Who knows where that money goes and how that money's spent? We don't know. We're not privy to that. What this motion does is we're taking back control of that, of our property. And they told us yesterday, they may or may not be interested in working out some sort of lease agreement for that. That was the exact quote that I got from the president of the DDA. So it's not a matter of, in all due respect, it's not a matter of we haven't sat down at the table. It's not a matter of we haven't negotiated in good faith. It's not a matter of if we just go to them one more time and explain it. That ship has long sailed. They were clear, without a shadow of a doubt, of this board's feelings on capturing extra voting. And they voted to capture it all, to go from one to all.
Well, that was my point, is if there was events going on there, I don't want to penalize somebody who wants to use it. I say rent it out.
No, the county will rent it out.
That's what I'm trying to say.
They will rent it out.
Yeah, as long as that's what we do.
We're not going to tell them
I don't want to
to
see it
rent. We're
just
just
sit there
going
and
to tell you
take
you're
it
going
while
to
we have
rent
this
it from
fight.
the
I mean, if we're
DDA.
gonna
We're gonna, well,
And I think in your motion, you need to say any other organizations or people that would like to rent it out.
Yes.
Has to come to the.
I actually had that in the motion. I pulled it up because I thought you guys would say it was too broad.
No, anybody else needs to come to the county for, the parks for rent.
The only, and I can clarify that, but the only thing is, I do think there's a difference, because if somebody wants to go have a wedding there, right, they need to go to our building and parks department and just follow the procedures and rent it just like anybody else. If specifically the city and the DDA and the chamber, because they're all tied, and I'm sorry to include the chamber in this, but their members are the members of the DDA district, and they have a big voice in this. And if they want it, in my opinion, it's not a matter of go to, for two reasons. Number one, those events are generally larger, and it's a different structure. But number two, they need to come in front of this board and have the discussion.
We're not trying to punish anybody, we're just trying to get this thing straightened out. They should not be capturing this extra voted millage. I don't think they've even thought about it. What happens is they capture the veterans millage. They have no idea what it'll look like next year when they're reelected.
If I were a veteran in this county, I would be furious.
No, they will be. You don't have to worry about it.
If I'm going to give money to a DDA, I'd rather go to Columbiaville or Otter Lake than Lapeer, sorry, Lenny. But, if money's gonna be collected out of my millage, I'd rather go to my local DDA, not Lapeer DDA, as simple as that.
I understand.
And that's why I said, if we're gonna do this, as Cheryl points out, I wanna make sure we're still gonna rent that out, because I think it's a great spot, there's a great, it's right next to the courthouse, it's right in downtown Lapeer, let's rent it out, let's get the money from it. Let's not close it
And
down.
I'm happy to include that in my motion. One of the arguments here is that they say, well, it's only captured from the DDA district. But the bottom line is, simple economics tells you that if you go out and raise X amount of money, if you raise $10, and somebody takes a quarter of that $10, you only have $9.75 to spend on those services. And if you want that entire $10, you have to go out and collect $10.25, which means everybody else in the county now pays a little bit more because somebody's skimming. And I'll use the word skimming because it's a legal skimming operation.
The veterans, all those extra millage, they're voted on so that money goes to them and it's being taken away from them. How that?
That's exactly right.
And no one can say that we don't provide more than our fair share of services even within the DDA district. My goodness, we have a senior center there.
Which they've never contributed to at all, the city has.
I support that addition that you added there too.
I'm sorry, Rick, we didn't hear you.
I said I support that addition, if we're talking about putting that in your motion.
Okay.
Just one other comment, because it is my district, so I want to be able to comment on that. And being my district, and I respect everybody's vote, because like I say, we're all the same on philosophy. My vote will be no, because it is my district, and I want to be able to give time for some other things to play out, including a new administrator controller. But having said that, I don't blame any of my fellow commissioners who it's not their district for being fed up already. And I think it's important to understand the divisiveness sometimes that this causes for the city throughout the rest of the county. Because what happens is the old emperor's clothing type of routine. If you're in the city and you spend most of your time dealing with people in the city, you might have a little bit better perspective or a different perspective of yourself than if you go outside your bubble. And I can tell you one of the advantages of being a county commissioner is in addition to us being geographic districts, is we do also represent the entire county, and we try to keep not only our individual districts' best interest in mind, which is why I'm going to be voting no, but we also try to keep the county's overall best interest in mind. And so when I travel the rest of the county, I can tell you that your perspective is limited to the city, and it is not countywide. And the city is a very small portion of this overall county. If you think your tax policy is viewed favorably by all the rest of the residents in the county, who then have to, as Commissioner Kemp described, subsidize the difference, you're kidding yourself. Because I hear it all the time. And even within my own district, like I say, I'm voting no, because the city is a big portion of my district, and I want to give other things to play out, but it's not the sole part of my district. I also represent portions of Lapeer Township. I represent portions of Mayfield Township. And I have to keep their best interest in mind as well. And I can tell you, those residents are not happy about the fact that they go and vote on a special voted millage and they see a capture like this taking place. So if this causes a further divide for you, which I think does not serve your overall marketing strategy well. There's a lot of things. Downtown Lapeer is a great place to be. And you guys do so many things great. And Jim, you do a great job. as the Downtown Development Director there. But despite all of those great things, this works against you. You are going to have people that go, because I run into them in my county law. I ain't going to Lapeer. Now, I'm staying as far away from the city, and you heard it. I'd rather go to this downtown, or I'd rather go to this town. And I have to try and defend my city to the people that I encounter that have this perspective. And they have a very negative perspective, and sometimes it's historic. It goes back decades, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's an east versus west, you know, type of thing. But sometimes it has to do with stuff like this that they read or that they hear about. So I really, really hope you guys give serious consideration to, even if you think you're doing the right thing, how divisive this is countywide to you. I explain my vote as best as I can.
Okay, so we're taking a vote.
To clarify, could we have that motion read again? I'm not sure if it only includes activities of the Lapeer DDA.
To direct the administrator to send a letter, I should say to draft and send a letter to Lapeer DDA, City of Lapeer, and Lapeer County Chamber of Commerce that all events currently scheduled or requested to be scheduled on the Lapeer Courthouse Square, including but not limited to the pavilion, are not permitted until a formal request is made in person and approved by the Board of Commissioners, by the Lapeer Board of Commissioners. And Cheryl wanted to add...
Well, the interpretation is it's all activities, not just their activities.
No, all activities.
Well,
I don't.
We can add in there...
Could you put in writing and in person? Because you want something writing first.
Okay, yeah, in writing and in person, that's fine. And we could put in there... well, actually, I don't think we have to do anything else. Because currently, if somebody wants to use the policy now is...
It's now ours, it's not theirs.
Right.
So
but the current,
I'm just trying to clarify.
Right, let me clarify. The current policy is if somebody wants to use the courthouse lawn, the courthouse, any of that sort of thing, we have a schedule for that. And they can come to Buildings and Grounds and do that.
Okay.
That policy doesn't need to change other than we probably need to put a rental rate for that in there. So this specifically will be geared towards the DDA, the city of the chamber. Somebody could, as soon as we put a rental rate in there, which we can do that and get approved by this board, somebody, which I don't think anybody's going out there and letting tomorrow, but they could then come and rent that normally. So you wouldn't need to do anything. For instance, let me give you.
Better be careful. You better cover everything, or they'll find a way around it.
Let me give you a for instance. The Kiwanis had a pancake breakfast over. I believe it was the Kiwanis, I can go for it. Had a pancake breakfast over there. They on the courthouse lawn. They came directly to Joe at the Parks and Buildings and Grounds, and I think we actually, to be honest with you, waived the rental fee for that because they were raising money for the kids' backpacks.
They're not
back to school thing. But that was contracted, if you will, directly through Parks and Buildings and Grounds. So that would not change. This is directly to those activities that these folks are involved in.
But how about the bank having their ice cream social?
They come to us already.
They asked us already.
And anybody using the pavilion now would have to come to us.
Right.
Because it's the
We don't have to change
Oh,
anything.
there's no-
To the board or to Buildings and Grounds?
Buildings and Grounds.
Buildings and Grounds.
So basically, next week, we need to, potentially next week, we can put a motion together to update.
I think you better have it come back through the board.
No. These three entities would have to come back through the board.
Everyone else can go.
Everyone else could go to Buildings and Grounds.
Because they're already fee-based.
So if somebody's gonna
Right.
have the old courthouse for a wedding, and they want the reception outside, they wanna rent the pavilion too, then we could do a package deal. And you might wanna have a Buildings and Grounds meeting 8 o'clock next week.
Yeah, we can do that.
And because we've got the alcohol on there.
You
And
got alcohol? Because my last meeting?
That'll be there for you. So,
You're talking about for the other parts, right?
The other parts.
No. We get a discount.
So none of that would
buy it
change.
through-
None of that would change.
Well, let's vote.
Well, I'm trying.
Move this on.
When they want to vote, I mean, it's easy. When I want to vote, it's not so easy, okay? So, all right, I'm going to call for a vote. Brendan?
Yes.
Becca?
Yes.
Lenny? You already told us no. Go ahead. Linda?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Gary, yes. Okay. Motion passed. So, what do we do now, other than we have one more public comment, Rod?
No, we're done with public comment.
Unless any reports that we got.
Any more reports?
I
I think so.
do you want to start your closed session or wait till next week?
Wait till next week.
Yeah, we can wait till next.
Can you
Rick's
wait
trying
till
to
next
get
week?
Rick's trying to get your attention. It's hard to hear you, Rick. You really got to speak up.
I'm trying, somebody told me it was clear, but I'll speak up. Anyways, I had two information I wish we would give, it just quick. Lauren sent us the email for that. He's gonna resend the email because it came in as a PDF, but I still couldn't open it. So he's supposed to send that out to us this afternoon. Also, the Tea Party I found on Monday evening is gonna have a thing with Gary and Kevin, Gary Howell and Kevin Daly. So that if anybody wants to get on that, I don't know if they're gonna have it open for discussion, but they're gonna be talking about what's going on with COVID. So I just thought I'd put that out there for you guys.
Is that Monday? Yeah.
Monday, check with William Gamet, but it's supposed to be Monday evening, my understanding.
Maybe the Tea Party knows, as Kevin or Gary Howell, as either one of them. I mean, the whole thing happened here with the Open Meetings Act and everything else, when they never finished the meeting. They got halfway through and they all just went home, and they left it here with what we're dealing with. I mean, they shoved off. So basically, when it comes to the open meetings, and when it comes to Zoom, we're only supposed to be using Zoom right now for important stuff like COVID or something like that. That's the only thing we're supposed to be using Zoom for is an open meeting. But they shoved off. They just said, well, we can't finish this today, and they went home.
That's a great question, and it will be Monday, and I'll have announcements going out this afternoon, emails and everything, and anybody can join. It's Zoom, so everybody's totally safe. You can and answer questions from home, but it's Gary and Kevin will be answering things related to the election and the whole COVID lockdown, where that's going. So that's absolutely anybody who wants to can join.
Are we doing that at the third rounds, or are you doing that?
No, that's all virtual. It'll be a complete Zoom meeting.
Right. How you doing? How's your back and how's your hips and stuff?
The good hip is good. The bad one they're gonna fix next week.
Are they?
The belly's worse after sitting here for 4 hours.
Well, I know what he's going through, and that's a bad deal.
So, but yeah, so the last one went pretty smooth.
Good. Any other business for the county?
Move to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Have a great week.
I propose schedule, I propose